Hey, everybody. So, glad you guys could all make it. We haven't been here for a minute. You already asked if I got your emails. Hang on. I'm really, really busy editing. I cannot read my emails this year. Maybe. Okay, maybe not. And damn, Mr. Jones. I
Hello.
just. I introduced you last week. We talked a little bit about you when you had your little car issue.
Yep.
We were all afraid that you'd been stuck in a tunnel because that seemed like
No. Most of the people are afraid that I got stuck. Actually, when there is a underground accident happening in Poland, I get like 10 emails at this day. People asking, "Are you this guy?" No.
And I mean, I always refer to you as my favorite madman because I thought I was a little crazy. Uh, you were mad. If you have not seen his videos yet, you need to go to your YouTube because I always said really look forward to you and I going underground together. There's just one little thing: you can go places I can't because I'm top heavy.
Yeah, so I think it's an advantage, not a disadvantage in this case.
I think I need to diet significantly in order to follow you everywhere because I think I get stuck.
It's not that easy to get stuck underground. I mean, people think it's like you place your body in some kind of a niche and then you just cannot move out, but it's not working like that. You just need to be calm and patient and you will get yourself out, unless the gravity is pushing you downwards, which means it's quite of difficult to overcome this power. And that's the moment when you can actually get stuck. And in a whole caving or exploring history, we know maybe 3 cases of people who got stuck actually. So yes, it's not that common as some people may assume.
I'm just gonna share a picture for a minute. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
not
that's
sure.
me.
I'm. How do you
I'm
expect
go
me to do that?
I'm telling you, you will be also in this pipe. When you will visit me in Falkenhagen, that's the pipe you have to actually not
Oh,
explore, but I would say penetrate, because at the end of this pipe there is like 30 meter hoch. I'm sorry, I'm switching to German. 30-meter high shaft, and you have to climb it up to get to the top of the tower, which is really interesting because you are supposed to be in an underground bunker, but there's one tower, not only one tower, but also two others. And this is the way in. Yeah.
I had no idea that was Falkenhagen. Well, I guess then we don't have. There's no choice then. Um,
Yes. That's also Falkenhagen. Every wall and every ceiling, every ground, everything is double in this place, and you can crawl into any hole in the wall that you actually see and get out like 2 floors higher or lower if you know how to move in this maze, because it's actually a big maze, this whole underground. It has almost 400 rooms.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, what do you find anything interesting in there?
Unfortunately not, because this place was never that much important after the war. Before the war, it was also kind of important, but it was pursuing the idea. It was built in a pursuit of idea that never been real made, actually. So to find something, it's difficult. What you can find is many newspapers from 80s, 70s. I mean, Soviet newspapers. So if you would be interested during the crawling or squeezing yourself in a ventilation to check what was the weather on the behind the Ural Mountains in 1985, for example, then I may provide the newspaper telling you that if you can read the Russian script.
That's interesting. I have found an awful lot of newspapers in strange bunkers and strange places. Um,
If there were Russian bunkers or used by Russians, then probably the newspapers, newspapers was like internet for them. So they were delivering it in a huge amounts, I think, to the bunkers. And also they were using it to many purposes. Like, I mean, they were using it as a tapestry. I mean, the paper
yeah,
you put on the wall.
for
Yeah,
heating.
they were also wiping some food inside it. I saw also cigarettes made of the newspaper, which is not the best idea, especially because you don't want to smoke the ink. But yeah, that's what the resourceful Soviets were doing when they were
I
bored.
mean, the Germans were doing the same thing in their barrack buildings, and I've seen some of the original barracks that are all plastered with newspapers from 41, 42, 43. Uh,
Okay, that's interesting. That would be nice to read.
above ground, the wooden Regelbau, the barrack buildings, they were just like the bunkers called to order. We needed this long, built in sections, delivered, just put together, and they were still a little cold. It's interesting, and there's a Danish barracks that's the Kaserne in Aalborg still has those, except they're not plastered with old newspapers. I don't think. But it was really interesting to go through some of them. If you find the original ones, you'll see a bunch of old newspapers and stuck on the walls, and you can't take them off. And
You cannot take them off, and especially when you are not German and you are not familiar with this inscript way that the old Germans were writing, because they were using similar alphabet to ours, but sometimes it's really difficult to read it. Even if you speak German like I do, I need somebody actually to tell me what's this word, because I cannot somehow understand it. Not because of the meaning, but because of the way it was printed or written.
and then there's German today, which one of the things I get when I go through files and old paperwork in German. There's the German we talk today, and the German when you go order some sauerkraut or you need to go to the newspaper, everyday life German. And then there's the World War II German and the technical German, and then you're starting to get like, and you have terminology that has disappeared that you don't even use anymore.
Also the shortcuts, which is the most difficult thing, because they used to have such long words, and they obviously don't wanted to write it that long, so they were using shortcuts which were familiar to the people who are in this area. But if you are a guy like me and trying to translate something from 1941, or I would say even, then it's really difficult, because I have to call my German friend literally every 5 minutes to ask him about the meaning of some kind of shortcuts. And it's not that easy for him either, even though he's the guy who's interested in old war memorabilia, he's reading the archives and so on. He also always have to think a little bit, what can it be? Because yeah, it's not that obvious.
It's an abbreviation of a word that nobody uses anymore, which is not
And
making it any easier.
that's true. And also German after the war evolved a little bit. I mean, there are some different expressions in West Germany, there are different expressions in East Germany.
Yes.
And yeah, Germans know how to make things complicated. They actually do know it really well.
I believe they have the expertise in that. That's why they're such good bureaucrats.
Yes, yes, yes.
You have 20 different departments writing each other about the same thing, and nobody responds.
That's also true.
So, how did this all start for you? I mean, I guess you were born above ground.
Mhm.
You weren't always a mold.
So actually, I had some signs that it's sitting inside me. I mean, this passion to exploring underground places. When I was already 12, we started to explore some storm drainages under my city. And I started to do it, of course, even without some special boots or lights. We are just taking candles and putting 20 plastic bags on the left foot and 20 plastic bags on the right foot. And somewhere in the middle, all of the layers were broken. So you were walking anywhere in this water. So this is how it started. But then I had the idea to open my own company. So actually, my passion, my hobby, and underground interest went to the side. But 4 years later, this company was closed. I was broken, and I was thinking, what do I want to do now with my life? I mean, I obviously
Hide
tried
underground.
one thing that were supposed not to maybe be my passion, but be interesting for me, and I put everything on this one card. And now it didn't work. I have no experience in anything actually. I'm still young. I have to find the goal that I want to pursue. And then out of nowhere, a friend of mine invited me to the bunkers, to the OSTWALL. I came there with my ex. It was December 2012, quite late, unfortunately. But when I saw those big underground tunnels that you can actually get lost in, because that's something that's I'm really interested in the places which are complicated, in which you have to think where you go, you just went, how to find the way, maybe find some stone marking places or so on. When I saw those tunnels, I literally felt butterflies in my stomach, and that was my first time underground. And now, like 9 years later, actually 10, uh, now 10 years later, I'm the guide in this museum. I have my own groups. I organize underground trips for other people to, I would say, poison them with this underground passion, because I figured out that I'm good at it. I mean, there's many people who actually started to go underground to make the courses and so on, just because they went with me for the first or for the second time. That's a very very good feeling if you are actually starting somebody else's hobby. Yeah, and this is how it started. I just a random trip underground in a moment when I was looking for a new destination in my life, and actually it fitted together because I felt the butterflies, and I know, well, that's something I want to do. That's something that's interesting me. I would do it either without, if I would not be paid for that, I would read news or books about it, even if I wouldn't have to. So I think that means that's my passion. I started to pursue it. After the bunkers, there were some underground mines, Riese complex also, the parts in Czechia, which you saw, thanks to which you found me. Only two movies in English made on my channel, and you found the one with 1,000 clicks. And at this time, I think it's really a miracle. And then in 2018, I think, or 17, I visited my first cave, and this is the moment. That was the moment when I felt my butterflies again, and then I got really, really interested in caves. But my interests are actually everything which is connected to undergrounds, regardless if it's a bunker, regardless if it's a, I don't know, some kind of abandoned building, or just a cave. If it's underground, I like it. I want to get in.
And it's peaceful.
My God, sorry for that.
It's really interesting because I mean I started above ground. My granddad had a summer house on right on the Atlantic Wall, right in the in between. So I grew up playing in all the bunkers and crawling inside them and under them, just like you. But it was bunkers and forts and old castles. And I remember I lived some years when I was a kid in England, and my mom would see all the castles. And there's one of the castles where the dungeon is literally this small little crawl space under the stairs. The royals would walk, and I had to try to squeeze in there. And you get into this little squalor, but there's a little dungeon in the back, and it's so peaceful and quiet. That was my childhood memory. But I never thought I was going to go start crawling through caves. But when you get in a tunnel, and a lot of guys and a lot of people, you ask me if it's scary or if there's, and a lot of the wartime places. I mean, people died in there during the war. I mean, it wasn't a safe work environment for them, and there's that's a whole different story. But when you get in underground, it's very very peaceful. It's
Yes, that's
so
one of my favorite parts. You have no internet connection, no politics,
yes.
no phone ringing. It's the place where you actually can actually hear it, the silence, that there's
Yeah.
nothing in it, or also the total darkness. That's also the part I like, especially when you wake up in the morning, yeah, in some kind of underground place, you haven't left any light on, and after opening your eyes, literally nothing changes to the perspective of them being closed, and that's also an interesting feeling. I just like when it's dark. Look, I mean, now I'm sitting at my home. You cannot even see it because I'm sitting in my homemade cave, which is cave built under my bed. Oh, that's nice.
I thought you were just going for artistic lighting.
No, 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 no. The light is something I have to work on because it's putting a shadow on my eyes, but I feel comfortable. It's dark here.
I mean, you got a little Doctor Strange love thing going on there. It works. But you used to go to the OSTWALL and spend the nights there in that little bunker
Yeah,
there.
not even one time. I actually was doing it for quite a long time. There was a period in my life, I think the whole year, when I was, after 1 or 2 weeks, I was feeling, damn it, I need to sleep underground because I'm getting crazy. And we just were going down for one day, sometimes maybe two, but never longer, to the Ostwald. And we were looking for a nice and and a comfortable place to spend the night. We were building a table, sometimes even starting a small party. And yeah, I was still exploring these undergrounds or the bunkers which are on the surface because they are also interesting.
They are.
And but then I came to this point when I was feeling okay. There's still some stuff that I haven't seen, but most of it, like 80% of it, I've already seen. So it would be good maybe to move on to something new. And this is where the Riese complex jumped in because I started to read about it. I organized my first, my second, my third trip to this place. Yeah, and then I started to explore all the mines. I didn't even have the proper helmet yet. I was walking around in the mines with the scooter helmet. I mean,
I'm sorry, helmet. I'm not familiar with this concept. What is that?
helmet. It's like the stuff you put on your ground, so
Oh, like a
on your
salad bowl.
head. What?
Like a salad bowl.
Like a salad bowl, yes, but it saved my head and brain from injury so many times that I'm not discussing whether it's useful to wear it on the head or not. If I'm underground, I mean, if it's not the bunkers, then I just wear it because I have a tendency to hit my head against the ceiling too many times to avoid doing that.
Well, the ceilings you go through is a lot lower than the ones I've seen lately.
Yeah, mostly on any level, yeah.
But you now talking about the Riese complex, and that is that. What are your? We spent some time. That you spend a lot more time, especially in underground, than I have. What are your thoughts of the whole Riese thing? Because it's something that so many people are so interested in, and it's so hard to get to. And then you have all the stories and all the concept. What do you think?
Well, I think well, every year or so in Poland, we have somebody jumping out with the theory, what could it be? Why was it built? And some people were saying because of the producing the ammunition and the planes. Some people were saying the headquarters for the Führer. Some people were saying some kind of laboratories to check if there is some kind of poisonous gas that you can make. I have no opinion on that. What I know is that there is still a lot more hidden underground. And based on those three complexes that I saw, which means I will just mention the Polish names, which means Jawornik, Sokolec, Gontowa, or Soboń.
Yeah,
Those are very, very, very unfinished. I had
yeah,
no possibility to check some other entrances which are on the private property, but those three places are very unfinished. I mean, they
yeah,
didn't even manage to dig the tunnel to the form that they wanted to fill it in with the concrete, and
yeah.
there are
I've
not
been through
no
them as well.
places. Yeah, there are no places like you could hide something, or if there had been such places, because this is how I actually got to know a guy because there was some cave in and somebody dug it underneath. So I crawled through this place and it was really, really scary because everything was literally hanging.
Yep.
And I had some cold sweat on my back, and I left there my like visit card, to let the people know that to get inside, so that I was there too. I'm crazy enough too. But then I was thinking, who was crazy enough to dig in there?
Hang
And
on.
then I
Did you leave the little flashlight?
no, 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 no.
That wasn't.
No, that's not what I'm living. Anyway, and then I was looking for a accommodation. I found one, and I started to talk to the owner. I told him about it, and he told me, "Wait, wait, wait. Are you Kawiak Jones?" I said, "Yes." So actually, last time I've been there, I saw your card behind this collapse, behind this cave in, and I was thinking, who was so crazy to get in there? And I said, yeah, that was me. And when I was leaving this card, I was thinking, who was that crazy to dig it? And he told me I was. And this is how our friendship started, just because of this collapse. And so, if there were some places that were promising underground, they have already been checked. All of the places besides the bottom, because I think the bottom of this mines is the best place to hide something,
Yeah.
because bottom is mostly uneven rocks, rock surface that's covered with some rumble or some broken rocks and so on.
Yeah.
So for me, this is what where they would hide something if they would really like to. but from observing the surroundings of those objects and what's inside in these three objects, because I'm still talking about those three. I'm not talking about some different entrances. I'm talking from the underground. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, it's really difficult for me to think that they could use it for some kind of a bigger entrance for a bigger complex or so. So in those three complex, I'm not that convinced that there could be something more, but there were more entrances. To one of them, there were like 8 or 9 entrances. Some of them are only 5 meters deep. Some of them they just started to the cave in the mountainside to get in. So this is something interesting, and also this whole complex, which is supposed to be in the middle between those. It's called Moshna in Polish language. I think that it's still not open. It's still not found, and I think that this place maybe would be interesting to for hiding something. And also, what I know that there was a very big mine. It was called Wenslaus, I think. It was located very close to Riese, and this big mine was very difficult to actually to mine the coal out, because there was a lot of carbon oxygen, CO2
That's
inside
the
the
one
earth.
near the hinge.
Yes. And there were some tragedies happening, like it was
Yeah.
exploding. Some people were left underground because they died, and then they abandoned digging, and then shortly before the war they started to do it again. But this mine was actually digging out, like, I don't know, I'm saying now it from my memory, I think 500,000 tons
Yeah.
of the coal every year. And if you have such an amount be getting out every year, I know there's not doesn't mean that there is so much free place, because they were using the rocks to actually fill in the places which were not interested for them. But that means there are some huge undergrounds there. And shortly after starting the war, I think SS, if I remember it well, took over this whole mine and the buildings on the ground, and they started to do something underground, and to this day we cannot get in. And I heard many rumors about it. I don't want to just tell them now, because rumors are rumors, and I can tell about many stuff. But I think this is also an interesting place, because the tunnels were already there before the war,
Yeah.
and Germans are the people who don't like to make something again if you can have it actually already done from somewhere else. And I will give you a good example. It's called the Fichtebunker. It's in Berlin, and that's one place. Before the electricity time, they were using it as a gas container. After electricity time arrived, there was no point of using it, so they started to rebuild it into the bunker, the circular bunker. And after that, when the bunker was not needed anymore, they started to make it as a warehouse where you can actually store a lot of food for the city in case of Cold War breaks and they will be surrounded. But now there is nothing, so they started to build buildings at the top of it. So if you want, you can have your very expensive mansion at the top of the city, Berlin, on the bunker. So you can see on the base of this one building how Germans were keen to actually reuse some parts
Yeah.
of the infrastructure which they already had. So I think this mine is interesting, but this mine is also very dangerous, because coal mines are the most dangerous to explore
Yeah.
because of the gases. And yes, I think if somebody would start to do something like that, they would find something. But to start it, it's not that easy in Poland, especially that I heard also about many cases of the people who actually found something, and then they were organizing all of the agreements to actually start digging. And when they start digging, there was some sudden no coming from the upstairs.
Yeah.
So I also heard some, I would say, call it conspiracy theories about some companies from the abroad who came to Poland, to this region of this mine, and they wanted to make some drills in to check if there is some uranium or whatever of the minerals they were trying to extract. and also they wanted to do it, but shortly before they wanted to do it, the agreement was revoked and they couldn't do it. So I cannot prove it like nobody else, but what I believe is I believe in my intuition, and my intuition is telling me there is no way Germans were building something with such a big effort that's so small from what I can see now. Because what I can see now is literally maybe 3 kilometers of the tunnels back into
Yeah.
the very hard mountain, and if you see the infrastructure at the above and how protected it was, and in which point of the war they actually started to create it, that was the point when they started to lose. So it was not when they were actually very rich and had so much money and concrete and manpower to give it to everybody else. It was the moment when they were struggling to connect everything, and they started this big entrepreneurship. And there has to be something bigger. There is no way there isn't.
And it makes absolutely sense because the whole part of the U relocation was they were trying to use existing tunnels, rail tunnels, undergrounds, anything, mines, both in Jonasdal and Riese, Richard. A lot of these places were all existing mine complexes that they took over and used because I mean it's faster to move into ore cavities than natural. I know towards the end of the war, Himmler was very fascinated about very large natural cavities under Vienna and under Warsaw as well.
Under Warsaw, natural cavities under Warsaw?
Yes, I found a note that Himmler had sent. I don't remember if it was to Sivas or someone else. I can't remember who he sent it to. That he was interested in exploring the under cavities, natural cavities under Warsaw for wartime production. I think it was late '44, so it was a little late. Um, I don't
Well,
think it.
okay, it's very, for me personally, it's kind of, I know it's just a small note, but I want to just
Mm,
put my opinion about it in. It's difficult to find something like that in Warsaw because Warsaw is not the area where such things occur. It
what's
had
the
to be a
ground?
cave. If it was natural, then it had to be made by nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there had to be either water penetrating the limestone to create the cave, which is not the case because there's no limestone underneath the Warsaw,
Mm.
or there had to be some tectonic movements that actually decompressed some part of the stones that were just decompressed, and because of the voids between the rocks, you can actually get in. But that's also not the case. It happens highly in the mountains. So those cavities underground in Warsaw, it's interesting if it would not be natural. But if it's natural, then I'm very skeptic to that.
I don't know. Yeah, like I haven't spent much time under Warsaw, but like as part of the looking for locations, I would see them following every lead, and the same thing with the old coal tunnels out in Riese, and that is a from what I've heard, and that is interesting with the Rieses where the henge was. It's both that one and Wolfsberg is owned by Christoph Spakowski, and he's actually a very nice guy. I wish you have to come meet him and tell me what he says because he doesn't speak a word of English. But Wolfsberg, that this is Wolfsberg,
Yeah, I've
and
been there.
and one of the problems he had there, specifically as to what you were just saying, was next to him, next to this entrance, there's it looks like there's a tunnel that's covered.
Another
He
entrance. Yeah.
wanted to drill, and he has a lease for this place and set up the whole entrances and that little restaurant and stuff. And he tried to drill a hole through the inside, and they fined him a crap ton of money. He actually, let me see if I can have a picture of that room, um, of this room. He tried to drill a in that one. No, this is not Wolfsburg. This is the other one. Never mind. There's a bunker room like this in Wolfsburg, and they tried to drill inside just a hole, just to see what was in there. And the government they just fined him like hell. And I see that everywhere. If it's Germany or Austria or Poland, the moment there's a place of interest, if it's in the middle of nowhere, you can't get the permission. And if you ask twice, they'll usually turn it into an natural preserve, and you're not allowed to dig. They do everything they can to make it as impossible. And that's why I see a lot of these places. have been turned into natural preserves. You saw
Yes, that's
out
like the next level of protection, and it's
yeah,
even more difficult to get the permission because you need to go to higher authorities.
exactly. And you saw what happened to Andreas Sulze out in Linz, where he found a staircase into with Berchtesgaden tunnels. He found a staircase into the ground, into the mountain, where the authorities didn't know where it was. And once he started digging, found up German helmets, and there's a literal bunker staircase built into, and he was going to continue up at the shooting range, and they shut him down. And over the weekend, they turned it into a natural preserve. And so, there's nothing there, you can't dig. And there's clearly something there. And they did the same thing on the field outside, where he found the huge octagon with a straight drop down. And he found has surveys found tunnels in the fields, and he had permission to dig because nobody knew there was anything there. This was a place the Germans covered up before handing over the area, so no one knew it was there. He found it from satellite imagery, aerial photography from 1944-45. And the moment he found something, huge concrete slab, and then tunnels in the field, they shut him down. He was not an archaeologist. And then the people from Mauthausen took over, and they excavated. They did whatever they did, and then they filled the whole damn thing up with cement. And I haven't seen any pictures, and I asked for them. So, and I have no idea why they would even be interested or why they would care. But it's very, very clear that there's a cover up going on. So the sad thing, I'm trying to talk to the German government about getting permission to see some places specifically, because my argument to them, isn't it better to let people like you and I go in and go through these places because we're, expendable, crazy, and somewhat skilled. It's better that we do it and document it and film it than people will crawl in over the wire in the middle of the night and get in there and get hurt because they want to know. Let us know, because we know there's something there. And just keep saying there's nothing. We know there is, and you know that there is, and you know that we know there is. So let us go document these places and see what's there and show the world, and maybe you're going to have less people jumping the fences. That's my argument to them anyway. Why that argument's going to work, I don't know. We'll see. But
yeah, I wish you a good luck. But from my perspective of knowing Germans for 10 years, a question you put, the question if can we get inside this part because we suspect there is something. There is no procedure of how to behave in such a case if you are working in the office. So I think from my perspective, my experience, when Germans have no perspective, no written black on white what to do in such a case, they just try to back off and just step back. I don't know, no idea, better nothing, because if I now allow you to get in and you find something and there will be some troubles just in case, then I will be the one who's responsible for that, and that's the last listing I do. I have like 3 more years to my retirement, so go ahead.
No bureaucrat ever got fired for saying no. That's kind of the first thing they must learn in the manual. It's easier, but I will agree, it is easier to just honestly just do it. And then
also you have to look from the perspective of a German government that may or may not know about the stuff that's hidden underground. That with that you may also unearth something that's not going to look well for them. You know what I mean? You don't want to find I know. I'm just telling from their perspective. If you would open a caved-in tunnel and found the remainings of, I don't know, 1,000 bodies in a white, blue striped uniforms, then that's not something you want, because all of the media would be talking about it, that it was found in Germany, that there was no way Russians did it, like the Germans like to say.
You heard that story too, did you? You heard that story too, about the 1,000 prisoners that was sealed in and the Americans knew about it.
If you would talk about Włodarz, Wolfsberg, then I may know which story you are referring to. What I also know is that they are extremely against looking for something that may reveal some details that will put them in a bad light. And we have the highway between Poznań and Berlin in Poland. And this highway now is in Poland. It was built by Polish people, not even by the government, but by one of the richest guys in our country. That's a whole different story. Anyway, this highway was already planned before the war, and this highway was going through the Ostwall. But and they used the highway as a cover up for the Ostwall. They said we are not building any
Yeah,
bunkers, we are building the highway, so fuck off and let us work. And this is the highway they started to build. And till now, you can see this highway line on the lidar. Which way was it supposed to go? There are some fundaments for the bridges and so on, so on. And somebody asked me, I'm not going to tell now who was it, but he asked me a very good question. Why in the 90s, when Polish people were building this highway, actually not planning it but building it, why didn't they use the old road? Why is it like on the whole distance of this 100 kilometers, it's
yeah.
like, I don't know, 150 meters, 200 meters to the south or to the north, but they never go on the same road.
I know. I drove that road. You can see the old road off to the side in some
Yes, and why
places.
didn't they use that? It was the most it was the normal thing to do. I mean, you already have the road. It's not maybe
Yeah,
prepared like you wanted, but somebody started this job 60 or 80 years ago. So it's easier than and it's already, they surveyed it. They know which ground is there, which kind of sand and how much you have to concrete you have to put on it. Why didn't they do it? And
and if
then
it
he
wasn't there,
told me because they would found a lot of graves.
there's a
And
lot
that's
of
what
yeah,
they don't want to do because along this highway there were a lot of camps for the prisoners, for the slaves. And
yeah.
this guy who's actually researching this subject, he told me that he never found anything telling about where those people were moved, and he's suspecting that those people were not moved unless you consider moving underground as a movement.
Yes. Um, yeah, and I think that this is one of the things where everybody who did it are dead.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it is time to come clean, I think. But because most people that you talk to, I mean, even they don't have to listen to you or I or other historians looking into this very long before they sort of understand that, yeah, we haven't been told the truth. And we know, I mean, we know that the Americans were hiding and working with Nazi refugees or fugitives after the war and hired a lot of them. We know that. It's not a secret anymore. So if you hired one more or less, if you hired Kammler or not, just come clean now. It's been long enough. He's dead. Everybody who did it are dead. Everyone who made the decisions are dead. Everybody who left prisoners behind in caves here and there are dead. Just come clean because we already know you're hiding stuff by continuously doing it. And I can't figure out if it's a deliberate cover up or it is just because it's easier. We don't know what happened, so we'll just say no. And we're just going to keep saying no because we don't know. And no one's going to make the decision to say, okay, let's open up all the papers, let's go have a look and see what's there. And I think as long as they don't want to do that, we're going to have people like us going to sneak in and see if we can find holes. But you also look at under the in the coal mines under the henge. I mean, they filled them up, they capped them with cement. How would we even get in there now?
Yeah, without any big machines actually drilling the way down, it's not possible, and they actually knew it, and
Yeah, we
that's
couldn't
the
even put
reason
it
why
through.
it was prepared this way, so that
Yeah,
you need a big equipment to open it up again. And with this equipment draws attention, attention draws some questions, and questions draw some problems that
yeah,
police will come and say, hey, you are not allowed because it's a place where we actually take a refuge to some kind of frog which is almost extinct or stuff like that. They will
yeah.
always find a reason.
Oh
And
yes,
actually any time when it comes to undergrounds, and I don't even mean man-made undergrounds, but I also mean nature-made undergrounds. I mean, it's very difficult, for example, in Poland to start to dig in a cave. There is a law in Poland saying that even if you have a cave underneath your property, you own it only to the meter deep. Whatever is lower, it's not belonging to you. I know in America the belonging it has a different definition here. But in Poland, we have a geological law. And even if you have a cave that you want to open, you just want to take the sand that got filled in to have the space underground for your wine or for your 50 shades of gray room that you want to have underground, for whatever it is. You cannot do it just in the sake of maybe there are some bones in the sand. And
Interesting.
there is no distinguish between like the caves that actually were big enough for the people, animals to get in, or caves that are very, very tight, and there is no way nobody 10 or 5,000 years ago was seeking for a refuge in this cave because it's just too moist, it's just too small, and the entrance is, there's no way they could do it, and there's not even place to start a fireplace that you will have warmth and light. So, and even in those caves, it's, I mean, people are doing that, but so far I know about only one cave in Poland that's actually digged out legally. All of the others are like, let's better not talk about it to anybody because they may stop it and so on. And it's a caveman. It's not something that you can find some Second World War remainings or so on. Maybe you will find an old bone. That's what you can find. So it's not only it's with undergrounds in general. That's why they are so interesting to me, because wherever I go, I see that there are some people. I mean, I don't know if it's in purpose or not, just like you, but there are some people who are trying to make us not interested in what's beneath our feet and not interested in exploring it. And I'm kind of a guy who, if you tell me not to do it, I will probably try to do it to.
No.
Yes, that's also something that's appealing to me. If nobody's interested in undergrounds, then maybe that's something that I want to be interested in. And I tried, started to do it. I tried, and I actually fall totally in. I mean, now my life is about undergrounds. I'm just living from one trip to another, even though if it's the underground I've already seen, and that's really interesting. And I still think that there are a lot of stuff hidden underground, because underground is like the vault. When you close it, even like 5,000 years ago, whatever is still in it will be there, not moved, or unless it collapsed.
Yeah.
And that's the best place to hide something, and that's like our last part of our planet besides the bottom of the oceans that we haven't explored totally. We know maybe first 100 meters, 200 meters, maybe in some parts of the planet a little bit more. But I think there's so many interesting things to see and find underground that I decided to make it as my
But,
hobby that's actually going to drive my life a little bit, because like I said, now it's everything, it's around it. It's not like it's a passion that's on the side, it's like in the middle and everything else is on the side. Maybe
it's
that's not
good
the
to have a
best
hiding
approach.
place. But yeah, but that is a question I found myself asking more and more. So if we go into this place, what is the fine if we get caught? Oh, 500. Okay, that's fine. We'll go. Speaking of, have you been to Quartz up in Austria?
Quartz?
The Quartz tunnels?
No.
9? They
No.
cap it. It's very, very, very large. We'll talk about that off camera because we should probably go take a look. There's a little bit of somebody stuck a truck tire in the hole, but then there's a 20-meter drop down, and you have this huge underground factory. They can't figure out if they're going to open it or not. Maybe turn it into a museum like Goosen. And like if you turn it into a museum like Bergkristall, so you want to leave one tunnel and close everything else and fill everything else up with cement. You know what? We'll just go have a look at it before you ruin it, because turning it into a museum is not always helping us.
No.
That means, well, we're going to show you one little thing that is completely sanitized, and everything else we're just going to completely fill up and destroy. And we don't want to play that. But speaking of natural decay, when it comes to these man-made tunnels, we do have a time crunch, because sooner or later, the ones that were built, the Germans built them pretty damn well, but they will eventually collapse. And talking about Richard and the Richard mines, which, as far as I know, you're one of the last people who actually been in there, was also the SS command was the last communication of General Kammler in 45 was to the Richard command, and they were supposedly expecting him to come there. So now we're looking at the very last days of the war, May 4, 5, 6, 7, and almost surrounded by the Russians. The Russians took the area in May 8. So if he had gone there or expected to go there to Richard, there's a lot of stories that you've been there. What's going on down there, and what do you think you can find, if anything? Is it even possible anymore?
I don't think it's possible anymore. I don't think, because especially since the Czech people placed this nuclear waste depository in the middle of it, because there is Richard 1, 2, and 3. Richard 2 is this nuclear depository. It's still getting bigger and bigger. They are still renewing new chambers, filling it with, not filling it, putting the concrete on the walls and using it as a storage for this part. For this nuclear waste. And this part which I'm in, it's now closed. And to be really honest, I'm kind of happy it's closed, because this kind of a rock, it's extremely crumbling. Crumbling, is it the proper word?
Yeah.
And this is the matter of maybe 1 or 2 decades before it's going to collapse to this level that it's actually not going to be possible to get in. And I was at the south part of this complex, and I saw some places where Czech explorers were digging, and I hope to find some tunnels that have not been found before. And believe me, I've been digging in many places. Some of them were natural, some of them were not. But to dig in that place, well, all of the rocks in the ceiling, you can actually slide them out, because they are not more connected. They are already cracked and so on. Like you see now, yeah? Everything is collapsing so fast and so much that it's...
that's the route you're on, yeah.
Only way is to get from the top, I think, because I don't believe in some other entrances. And to get from the top would be really expensive, because as far as I remember, the mountain is like 50 or 60 or maybe even more meters higher. I mean, you would have to dig the hole of 50, 60, 70 meters first to finally be able to get to the level of those tunnels where they're supposed to be. But even if Germans left them, unless they were totally covered in concrete and some kind of supports, pillars, and so on, those tunnels, and that's what's been inside it, I don't think it's still there, because, or maybe it is, but it's already collapsed. Because, like I said, this rock is a very soft rock, and you can see how many supports where they had to build there just to support this structure. In different kind of rock, you don't need that to support this kind of structure. And this, they needed to do it every couple of meters or so. So it was extremely expensive to maintain it. And that's entrance to Richard 2. That's what you see. Behind those doors, there's an entrance to this nuclear waste depository. And that's a video from 4 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. And I think now they already moved like 2 or 3 rams further. Because the Richard 1 is closed, they started to reuse it as a nuclear waste depository. And with the time, they will completely take it with them.
So is there only one floor? Because I understood that the story was the Germans drove in a bunch of trucks towards the end, way in the deep part of the mine. And by deep, well, you'd have to define that 2 ways.
You see how deep is it? Yeah.
Or in the back. And then they blew up everything around it so nobody could get in there.
It's big enough for trucks to get in. There is actually one very straight and big tunnel from the entrance, and it was, I mean, even a big truck would fit in there. So that was not an issue. But after the war in Richard, they started to extract this limestone. I think it was the limestone. They started to extract it again. And this, like the furthest part of this cave, which you see at the end where there was a plan, you could see that those tunnels were dug through a different pattern. And that's the pattern that was dug after the war. So if there were miners there for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 decades, still extracting the rock from this from these tunnels. So they had enough time to start looking for something.
Yeah. So
And
if they had been hiding something, they would have found it.
they would have found, especially that they were there legally. They had all of the tools. Nobody was controlling to which passage they go in
Yeah.
now. I mean, at least not for the whole time. They could do whatever they want. It was still not that collapsed as it was before. And only parts I think there could be something hidden are either the parts at the, I think it was south, so that were the oldest parts, the oldest tunnels that were the smallest ones with the like there was the shaft they were building with the bricks
Yeah.
around and so on. I also show it somewhere in my video. This is, can you stop now, please? The video. Oh, this is what you can see with the collapsing. I mean, my
Yeah.
head now is actually touching the ceiling, which was the original ceiling back then, and that where I went down is everything that collapsed from the top.
Yeah.
So
You're
you can
walking
see
on the roof.
the bottom of this excavation is actually traveling upwards with the years. More rocks from the top are falling down. They are making this big mess on the bottom. And because it's not that compressed like it was at the top, it takes more place. So this tunnel was that, and then it was still moved higher. And only because of that, it would be really, really difficult to find any remainings to show you that you are on the right track, for example, in this particular case. And like I said, only the south part, that's the place where those Czech guys were digging. And I saw a big pile of rocks that they excavated from this place. And I was trying to get in, but everything was that collapsy that even to my standards of making crazy stuff, it was too crazy for me to get in. And that's also not the place where the trucks could get in. I remember this place. It was very close to this room, which had those pillars, those to support the ceiling. You know,
Uh,
it is somewhere there. There's very the many. It's a photogenic place. People, if they went there, they were actually. I think it will be further after the part we already seen. Oh, this is some squeeze in. Yeah, they were actually digging. No, yeah, now I'm getting to the tunnel, and now I would supposed to be like 1.5 meter over the original ground level, and to get further, I have
yeah.
to climb through this pile. That's something that would make it difficult.
I
So
do agree.
the
It is a
result,
little
unless
scary
yeah,
when you get into a place and you know you're walking on the roof, and there's
yes,
some, especially when it get to be really porous and pointy rocks. I remember when we crawled through, I think Sobon and I was with Alex, and he kept telling me, "Don't watch your head, watch your head." Like I know,
yeah,
I
that's
he
also a
kept
nice
pointing out
part.
all the like that. Yeah, but
In
that
a
was
recharge,
that was
we had one place with those guys. They decided to show us around a little bit, and there was one place where they told us to walk only single. I mean, you don't walk with a friend. You wait until your friend is ready. And
uh-huh.
they told us it's not allowed to even speak because everything is hanging literally on nothing. And if you make too much noise, it may collapse. And that was like
Uh-huh.
enough for us. And this place is it's really extremely dangerous when it comes to collapsing. And yes, I mean Germans are smart people, but they know a lot about geology, you know, and I
Yeah,
don't really think that they would hide something there indefinitely, especially that it was not on a German soil, it was on a Czech soil. So unless like to Riese complex, they had some reasons to believe that this area is going to be German after the war.
yeah,
Nobody expected that they will move the border so much so far to the east, to the west. But this is the Czech area. It used to be Czech. It was Czech, and they have been there only since couple of years. I think in 39, they invaded or annexed the Czech Republic. So it was not their ground, and like I said, it was a board, so it would make difficult to get into that what they actually could hide there. It
see,
would be difficult, and also because of the rock, it would be difficult to get. Oh, now you can see this what's the name of it? That's an old part of the mine. It was not made by Russian by Germans. It was made actually in 19th century or even
Yeah.
older. That's like the main corridor of this mine. You see,
But you see,
it's
you,
reinforced. And
you
the second
mentioned
part is this rock. Germans, I think they knew that if they put something in this kind of the rock room, it's not going to be there, or it's going to be collapsed 20 years later, or something like that. And that's why I believe that they were doing some nasty stuff underground, or some stuff that we are not supposed to know about. But if whether there was something hidden there, just my intuition speaking now. I don't think so.
and it's interesting because it's a little bit can be said about under the Riese site, under the in the mines, the coal mines there. Whatever they dumped down, and though is 400 meters down. I mean, whatever they threw in there, there's no way they could even, they might not even be able to get it back. So a lot of the things that they were hiding were if they hit them here or they put them in the deep mine shafts at under the henge, they were never going to get them back, even if they kept the area because it was so deep and so dangerous. So we're questioning: are they hiding stuff? I don't think so. In those places, I think they're getting rid of stuff that they didn't expect to ever see again. Because I mean, even back then with the technology they had then, they're not going to be able to, if they dump machinery or something important down in a 400-meter vertical mine shaft in Ludwigsdorf, they're not going to be able to get it back.
Yeah, unless you think that in 2 years you are going to be back there, and you will have the whole authority of the new Germany supporting you to get it out.
Yeah.
Unless you think so, because it's not that much of a problem, to get some machinery from 400 meters down. I mean, if the shaft is still there, it's not filled in completely, it's only covered with something, and the cover is strong enough to hold it for the next couple of years. It's not going to go cave in a couple of years to reveal the entrance. Then it's kind of possible, I think, to remove the stuff from such a underground.
Hmm.
Yes, but it also, I heard about some theories about Riese, that they are some nasty stuff hidden underground, and that we don't want to do that, to find it, because then we would have to somehow, I don't know, get rid of it on our own expense, and that's what we don't want to do, because if it's still there underground, and let's say it's what's the name of it? It's Yeah, it's somehow dangerous for us. Then let it maybe stay there. Nobody knows about it, and this is the reason.
Yeah.
And what I know, it's also. I wanted to tell one story, but now,
While you
no,
think
sorry.
about it. But
Yeah,
what you said about it, and that's interesting because I'm just finishing up an episode about what happened out in Stekowice and Mednik Hill and Emil Klein, and I'm the episode I've been doing is so I've been brushing up on that and all the strange excavations that took place out in Czechoslovakia and all the gossips and the stories. And holy hell, there's a lot of stories. And of course, one of them is the traditional one about, oh, they were hiding gold trains. They were bringing stuff from Berlin to Czechoslovakia to hide. And we're looking at April or May 1945, where they knew the war was lost. They knew the Russians had almost taken all of Czechoslovakia. So to bring out any kind of information or gold or valuables and bring it to Czechoslovakia seems completely counter. They were not that stupid. They knew the people that were in charge. They knew Himmler knew, Kammler knew, Hitler probably knew, Goebbels knew. They weren't going to send things to a place that was definitely going to be lost, unless they were sending these things to cross Czech territory and hide them up in Austria, which has also been suggested. And there's a lot of places in Austria that we found Hitler had been briefed on, like Esche 1 and Esche 2, but we don't know where they are. We don't know where these tunnel systems are. You have Kellerbau and Bergkristall. Kellerbau is fine. It's not radioactive, but they still won't let me visit yet. Bergkristall is covered up. And then you have the test tunnels. And then you have Esche 1 and 2 that Hitler was briefed on. And we know there are tunnel systems that has not been found out there. that to me, outside Linz, is the best bet to find anything that has still been hidden, because you're not allowed to look. They covered it up very nicely, and the authorities might even not know where these things are. And to transport now, let's just take the whole gold train thing from Berlin to Prague is impossible in May, because the railways had been bombed with Dresden, so it wouldn't have been possible anyway. But to transport things through Czechoslovakia to Linz, maybe. But to hide things in Czechoslovakia, I don't see that as strategically a sound idea. So I think they were trying to bring things out. And the closest place. How are you at reading treasure maps in code, by the way?
The treasure maps in where?
Code.
I never had anything to do with. Nobody gave me any treasure map so far, unfortunately.
Well, funny you should ask. We'll talk about that as well. Um, Having done what I've been doing lately, some very interesting people have been reaching out to me and telling me and sharing information. And some of it is like, for instance, I have Emil Klein's full diary that he wrote while he was in prison, and all of it's in code. And I'm going to send you some, because he did drawings of how they did the underground bunkers and how they were doing the security locks. The drawings are sort of self-explanatory of what they built underground, but everything is written in code. So
it's old German, this weird writing style, and also a code upon
yes,
that. So
yes.
it's going to be very difficult to find out what he wanted to tell us.
Basically, what we need is a German code breaker. Now that I put that out there, I expect one of you guys watching this to get back to us with a German code breaker, please. And there's also, from a different side, that I'll some maps and some things where things were supposedly hidden in those last days by some of these people, including Kamla, which means I don't think he was bringing things to Czechoslovakia. I think he was taking them out, and I think they're hiding in Austria. And I guess it's up to you and I to find them, because, well, as far as I know, we're younger than everyone else who's looking, so we may outlive all the others, and we may be the lucky ones.
By the way, the story I wanted to mention
Yes.
came back to me. It is about Breslau, Wrocław, Polish city. This is the subject now I'm researching, because maybe let's move a little one step back. About the stories you hear and so on. It's not going to be probably be something new for you, but I, as an underground guy who is interested in caves, there is not a week in my life when I don't get a message or two from somebody who tells me always the same story. My grandma, uncle, or somebody else, when they were young, they saw a tunnel from the old building 1 to the old building 2. Most of them, they are church cluster or a castle or whatsoever. Most of the tunnels, they go under the river in some kind of 16th century technology to dig under the river. Very, very interesting. And there are so many stories about that I'm actually became super skeptic to such a news, because I have to somehow verify it by myself before I even start to consider it as an option, because there is something in the human nature that we want to believe in such a stuff. We want to also maintain such a story. So if your grandma told, if your grandma told your grandma something, that there was a 10-meter tunnel underneath this between those buildings, then until your grandma is going to tell it to you somewhere in a secret or as a story, this tunnel is going to be 100 meters long. You know what I mean?
Yes.
This is how it works, and this is what I'm doing now in Wrocław, Breslau, because there are so many people believing that there is underground train station, underground train tunnels in the Wrocław, and the city has more underground than it actually has on the ground. And I started to, what I did actually in last 3 or 4 days, I started to dig through all of those boards and sites on the internet, and I started to collect all of the stories that were told that there is something there, there is something there. And I have a very good friend. He's actually a PhD in Wrocław. His specialization are 19th century fortifications, and also the Prussian army. He can distinguish the uniform from this time to this time and so on. and he's from Wrocław, and he spent last 25 years following it. And he told me, you know what? When I started, I was a little bit younger than you, and I believed everything. I really wanted to believe it, and I started to explore it. But now, after 25 years, I did everything. Literally, somebody was telling me there is something there between those buildings, and I was going there and trying to find something. I know what kind of the new building looks like. How does the old building and new building looks like? And I could distinguish even from the brick laying techniques if it was old or not. And
Yeah.
believe me, after 25 years, I found nothing,
Yeah.
nothing in this underground Wrocław. And believe me, I was into this story to this level that I actually planned to maybe buy a house somewhere in the future in Wrocław that's going to be strategically located, and then I can just dig through the basement, and find my own entrance to those tunnels so that I can be the one who's walking and exploring them without being bothered by anybody else. But now, a couple of years further, and I'm very, very skeptic to that, to this particular case. I mean, the Wrocław, because I checked it, and there were also supposed to be trains getting out of the city, and they were sieged, so there was no way for them to get the train, so they
No.
started to hide it. And you can find a lot of deposits made by private people when they knew that the end is coming. They were trying to dig it and so on. But I don't believe in some kind of bigger underground in Wrocław, I mean. And also many stories that I get from Riese and so they are just, if you know a little bit about rocks or about how to dig it, how much time it could take and so on, then you are just skeptic to that.
It is not a last minute thing.
But yes, what I wanted to say at the end is that what I also believe is that many of those stories are being sent to the void, just to misinform, just
Yes.
to make guys like you and me. Not all of them. Some of them are coming naturally from those past by mouth stories, but there are also many stories and maybe even people, I think, from what other people say. I just cannot believe it's too much out of the space. But then maybe he has some other point in telling that, not necessarily revealing the truth, but maybe making the way to it even more foggy because he made such a statement, or she. So that's what I wanted to mention now.
And but you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you, now you are from there, so you can to some degree pass as a local in some places. I
Mm,
can't.
yeah.
And when, especially places like Riese, the stories you hear when you show interest, oh, there's no shortage. And you can. I'm fairly well balanced. I will listen to what everybody says. I will listen to every story they have, but the stories just get so many different directions. If you hear 10 stories and they all intersect in one thing, okay, then you can look at that one thing because that's the one story that they all have in common. But these are so, and they get more and more fantastic, and you get to the impression that you are just trying to get to look interesting on camera, or you're just trying to. You really do here feel it almost is a disinformation, and you see so many stories, and I get it. I will listen to every story, of course, and I will entertain every story, and then I will try to sometimes, and I love that, and especially lately, some people have gotten to me with Stasi interrogation maps
Oh.
and coordinates. That's interesting because now we have a report that is contemporary, and very few people are going to lie to the Stasi back then. That was a bad idea. If they, I mean, you weren't being interrogated, but you were being questioned about things you did during the war. So now I have coordinates to look at. I can then look at this. I can look at the time. I can look at the source of the reports. And a lot of people, they write, well, have you looked into this? Have you looked into that? I remember when I did an interview with Drakenefeld, and we talked about Antarctica for 4 hours about why it would be impossible for the German submarines to go there in May. Um, I still get the question, yes, but you didn't cover the story about the crashed UFO in the German forest. Like, no, I didn't cover that. You're right. Send me information. Send and okay, no, I'm sorry. The whole and like when we talk about the bell, that they saw something that was hovering with a light over the hinge. And I thought, well, you do know they made helicopters not far from there. Maybe there's a logical maybe they did see something, but maybe it's not what you think. I would love to find something that we don't expect, and I think it's possible. There's certainly research that was done during the time that is still classified because only God knows where it went. I would love to see if any of those built. I don't know, but it really is sorting through emails and sorting through suggestions, and then trying to find out what seems plausible. Is their location? Because the hearsay, there's a lot of hearsay, and it's hard. I mean, it's an interesting TV show in itself to just debunk the rumors. And even if you do debunk the rumors, you're still not going to do a good enough job because there's always going to be the person that says, "Well, hey, what about the UFO?"
Yes.
You can't you can't win. You can keep trying, but you have to go out of the base of a little bit of logic of what was possible at the time. And if you look at what Emil Klein was doing out there, we're going to take your questions in just a second because I know you guys are jumping at the bit here. You know what the Steshowitz treasure they found in '46. I mean, that was a last minute. You guys haven't seen this yet. You're going to see it on Wednesday when I put up the episode. We'll get that. That was a last minute. We can dig this in a couple of days into a dirt bank, support it with wood, and that's what you can do in a couple of days or a week. For you to have a big underground hiding place or the bunker underground, especially if there's rocks or mountains involved, it takes time, and you have to plan it in advance. It's not just going to happen. Oh shit, the Russians are coming. We have a week to do this. Then you get to see what that was. All right, officially, let's take some questions because there's. All right, now I can scroll all the way back, or you can just. What is your YouTube channel called? Well, I thought
My channel is called Kawiak Jones, but I have to warn you guys, it's made in Polish. My first idea was to start a YouTube channel with English, because I can speak English, maybe not that well as Polish, but I can still communicate in this language. And I also knew that it's going to be better for me to have more audience that's going to understand it. But in the beginning, when I was starting my channel, I was learning how to walk underground, how to stay alive underground, how to hold the camera, how to edit a movie, how to narrate a movie, and also to make it everything for the first time, because it was basically the first time for me. And to make it in English was a complication that was a little bit too much for me at this time. And that's why I came back to Polish language, because that was at least one problem less on my head. I'm planning to, not so soon in the future, but I'm planning to add titles to my movies. And if I will be able to afford it, I will probably even let somebody edit them to the English speaker, so that they are actually translatable, because now you cannot put automatic translation from a Polish language. It's too small, not
you can't.
popular enough. You cannot.
Why
You
not?
cannot even make a natural transcription, automatic transcription, so that you have the text in Polish, because if you have a text in Polish, you can send it to somebody who will just translate it in a week or two, and then you just put it in. In Polish language, it's not possible. You have to write the text in Polish by yourself, and then you can start translating it, or you can translate it as you write it, which means it's a very, very time consuming. I did it only to my Catacombs episodes, which there are 12 episodes, I think, of them from Catacombs. That was one of the craziest things I've done in my life. And I knew there would be a lot of people from France trying to see it, so I added English titles for French people. And those are the movies where the titles are. To the next movies, I'm sorry guys, but I'm alone with everything from traveling to exploring to editing. And there's no way I can also add English titles, but I remember.
You won't let us do automatic subtitling?
No, not to my language. There are maybe 8 languages which are supported with this automatic, and that's not my language.
That explains why I've been getting a couple of. Okay. I mean, but honestly, your videos do speak for themselves. You don't really always need to. you show what you're doing.
Especially the last ones from the caves, because there is basically this claustrophobia, and some people actually have to watch it in steps, to take a rest before they continue.
I guess we'll do some together when I get out there. And I also have some of the guys from Berlin Underworld that wants to go somewhere else and show us something else. And I'm like, okay,
That's really interesting, because I'm the member of them, and I'm really interested which people you mean. I actually now I'm going to Sangerhausen the next 2 weeks, I think, with the group from this community. Yes, but yeah, I'm happy to help however I can.
Now I have a question that I've been having for a while. That I've not about this. All right. The idea of why I think I'm getting a little bit of a runaround from NASA, and I'll just tell you what I did. I filed a bunch of FOIA requests from NASA as regards to Kamla's papers. I think, and it was interesting because the response I got from NASA was I wrote them a request requesting all the documentations and documents that was made by General Kamla and his post-war statements, and anything else that was research related that had his name on it. And I think that's obvious. And NASA wrote me back some of the same questions. Said, well, why? What does this got to do with NASA? And I sort of, it's like, well, I don't know. General Kamla was the chief of all your favorite rocket engineers. He was Dornberger's boss. He was von Braun's boss. He was the one that got the 600 rocket engineers delivered to the Americans in Austria. And he probably stayed with the Americans after the war. So, yeah, Kamla's kind of important to NASA. And that's why I asked. But because he was such a famous / infamous person, there's no way they could put him on a paperclip, because paperclip to me is the white secret project. Because paperclip is you bring 600 Germans over here or more to work on a public NASA project. Sooner or later, everyone's going to know who they are. So you whitewash all of them and all their backgrounds, and that's fine. It's really hard to clean up the slate of General Kamla in that sense, despite the fact that he wasn't mentioned at Nuremberg. So for that definition, he didn't do anything wrong, right? So him we hide, and we don't tell anybody in NASA we have him, which means that anybody in public relations or NASA papers, they won't know who he is. They won't know that because all that is classified. So I think half the time I'm getting runaround because I'm asking people in the military or in the archives or in the CIA who just don't know. And also, it's interesting enough, there was an '89 mission out to Mednick Hill as well, where JPL was rumored to have been involved, extracting some of the Ingalls or the Kamlastat rocket documents. That's why I asked them, and I think I'm getting the runaround because the people I'm asking simply don't know that the papers I'm asking.
I think that is a good direction there, because I will just draw your attention to this. Have you ever thought about why are NASA missions named this way? Why didn't they name the mission or the landing stuff just Charlie or Mary? Why it had to do so much with the ancient times, with the mythology and so on?
And the dates, what did they land on the moon on Hitler's birthday or something?
I know I didn't know.
I know Apollo. Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it, the whole getting to the moon part was a German project that was just happened to be stationed in America. That one's for you.
Kawiak Jones ever go into the tunnel with a gas mask? No, but I have my the sensor, which is checking how much oxygen is there in the air, how much carbon dioxide, or how much sulfur dioxide there is in the air. And if the air is not good to breathe, I just, most of the times I don't get in, because the places with the bad air are the places that are coal mines or used to be coal mines, because there is so much of the nasty stuff in the air. And that's are the places I don't explore that much, because I actually was poisoned by the gas once in my life. It was the exhaustion gas in in the car. I was laying underneath it, and I actually didn't know. And I have kind of a phobia when it comes to breathing. I need to know that my air is fresh and so on. That's why I always have this thing checking the air for me and pipping in case some levels are getting too low. But I don't wear a mask. It would be too difficult, and I think it would work only in a coal mines that I'm not that much interested in.
Damn, you're such a prima donna wanting fresh air and whatnot.
What's the biggest place unknown to most you have visited, and how large were they? Yeah, it depends on what people consider as unknown to most of the people. Uh, I've been in so many caves that are unknown to most of the people just because people are not interested in them. So but I have not been in some kind of, I don't know, really in some places. I've been to the bunker which is beneath the Alexanderplatz. I got taken to this bunker. I was excited, fuck, really, that I'm going to see the bunker underneath the Alexanderplatz. I went there with a camera. I actually recorded it, but I got no permission to post it because this guy who had the key to this place, told me that he has the key, but he's not allowed to take anybody there. So they will see. But you
Yeah.
know what? This bunker, I was actually disappointed after it because I was expecting so much. I heard so many urban stories about 4 levels of bunkers underneath the Alexanderplatz and so on, so on. It's just 2 levels of empty rooms. There's nothing technical on the wall. It's a dump place of the old lamps from the East Berlin. Actually, they didn't know where to put them, so they just put them in the bunker. One corner
Right.
of this bunker is actually cut out because of the underground garage they were building. So they actually removed one corner of the bunker. They cut it like the pie, and they put the wall there so that through the wall you can see in the hall you can see the cars parked behind it. There is a connection to U-Bahn, there is a connection to street tunnel, but there's nothing that you can be excited about. So in this case, that's some place unknown to most of the people, or it's living only in an urban legend, but it's still there, and that's some kind of a place. And so putting caves to the side, I think the most interesting place that I've seen that's unknown to most, because most of the people, including Stefan, I think if he goes to Paris, he wants to see Louvre, he wants to see Eiffel Tower and so on. And I went to Paris, spent almost a week there, and I haven't seen those parts because I was totally not interested in them. I spent 5 days underground in a catacombs. It's fairly known place, but it's also not a place that most of the people know about, and it's like 400 kilometers tunnels just beneath the city, 10 meters beneath it, and you can meet many interesting people there and also find some interesting places. There is a German bunker I've been to in Paris catacombs. I've been crawling through human bones piles or sitting on the throne made out of the skulls, human skulls. So
Yeah.
that's the places I would
It is fun when you're somewhere in the middle of nowhere in a strange tunnel underground and you meet other people. And
What do you mean?
have you ever you've been
Yes, yes, I did it quite often, and actually some of the friendships that started underground are
yeah,
still ongoing from now, because I figured out that whatever you do underground, it's somehow stronger than if you would do it above the ground.
it is
Uh,
funny. You just run into people in the underground somewhere in the middle. Oh, hi, you come here often.
yes, it happens. It actually even once it happened in OSTWALL. We were doing a party there. So a friend of mine had a guitar, and on the way to this place where we were supposed to meet, I was talking to my friend about some other friend that I haven't seen for 2 years. And then we were sitting in this room. We closed the doors because that was the time when you could close the doors. Now the handle is stolen, so you cannot. And somebody knocked to the doors. I said, "Who's that?" It said, "Open." I opened the doors, and this is the guy who I've been talking about half an hour before, even though I haven't met him for so many years. And when I looked at him, he made even bigger eyes than did. And he said, "Yeah, I've just been talking about you like 5 minutes ago, and now I meet you there." I said, "I've been talking about you half an hour ago." So this is what happens in Paris underground. It's even better because not all of the people, but most of them are very friendly. If they speak English, it's even better, because in French, France, it's they don't like English, and the other way around too. So that's something where it happens a lot. Yeah, that I meet people in undergrounds. It doesn't happen in the caves. It doesn't happen in all the mines, but mostly in the bunkers or some smaller underground systems. Yeah, it happens, and it's always interesting. We have a big mountain in Poland that's very popular. Every Polish people know it, and we have a big. It's not a bridge. That's some kind of a half bridge that gets to the sea, and that's it. That's a big, long bridge that gets to the sea and has no ending. It's just the end. I don't know how the name of it. You have it in California too. And if I meet somebody underground, depends on the place where I am. I ask them if I'm going well to this mountain or to this site on the north of Poland with this longest bridge in Poland, and that's always a good icebreaker because those people know that then I'm joking. I'm not the guy who's I don't know angry or for them being there, or I'm not from police or stuff like that. So yeah, it happens. Can Kawiak descend into Devil's Pit in Huska Castle? I have to Google it.
Good, because I was hoping someone would know.
Uh-huh. God damn it. I didn't know about it and I would really like to descend to this hole. Oh yes. Oh wow, that's well, Rolf. Thank you for this message. I'm going to research this topic because that sounds like the something that I really like, which is a hole in the ground. But this hole has to have a lot of history because it's in the entrance is in the middle of the castle, and that's something really interesting because that's the only place in this castle probably that you can still find something interesting or something remaining from the past. So yes, thank you for that. Huska Castle. Yeah. Mr. Jones, what's your favorite, most interesting underground you have ever visited? I think the favorite and most interesting underground is still in front of me, I would say, but so far, well, I have a big plans. Actually, this year I want to go to Peru to explore some undergrounds there because there are so many mummies and cave paintings and interesting caves from the Aztecs that I really want to take a look at it.
Did you say
Uh,
Paris?
what?
What did you say? Paris?
Peru.
Peru. Peru.
Yes.
Well, I'm planning on going to
An
Argentina.
interesting
That's
destination, yes. But I think the most interesting and favorite undergrounds for me would be either the OSTWALL, but this is difficult to say that it's my favorite because it's right next to me and I've been there for like 100 times. So I would consider it explored, but I think Paris catacombs because the only idea of having the underground system beneath your city, that if you are tired of what's happening on the ground, you just get underground through some kind of canalization hole in the middle of the pavement. And people are so used to that they don't even look at you when you are descending to this manhole, in the middle of the street or the pavement. This whole idea of meeting the people there who are building their own rooms, making their own sculptures, or making some graffitis, or making parties underground, really hardcore parties, or some kind of I even heard about porn movies being recorded underground in the Paris catacombs. This whole idea of the underground city is so much interesting for me that I
yeah.
think my life would look totally different if I would be born in Paris. Amongst all, I would be speaking French, this weird language, but to live
Wait.
in a city where you have undergrounds that you can actually get into, and there is actually an underground police scouting those undergrounds, looking for people like me to find me 40 euro for getting in there and ask me
Interesting.
out so that I can wait 10 minutes behind the corner until they are gone and crawl back again. It's
See,
it's
that's what I
it's
mean. 40 euros. That's fine.
40 or 70 euros, but those are the prices from 2018. You know how much euros they've printed so far. It's by now it's probably even more, but it was still not that much of a fine to to not consider doing that. And actually, if I would be living in Paris, I would do everything to get to this police, to be the one of them, to be paid for walking through the catacombs because that's a very interesting place.
It's interesting you say that because in Las Vegas, there's tunnels under Vegas where there's whole communities of people living now.
I
Uh,
heard about it in New York too.
Yeah, well, it's cheaper, I guess.
I think none of them in New York or Los Angeles they don't pay for that ad, but it was a nice joke.
That's
Have
you.
you ever found any medals or military personal items from Second World War in the tunnels? Uh, no, no, because most of the undergrounds I've been seeing, let's say the undergrounds from the Second World War, those were not the undergrounds that I unearthed, excavated. Those were the undergrounds that I got in after so many years of other people doing that. And I know the places in the bunkers where you can find some small remaining stuff, and I'm just I haven't even been to all of them. I just know in which bunkers there are some interesting stuff. But medals, no, I don't think it's even possible to find a medal underground in some kind of a bunker. Military personal items, I also heard about them. I haven't found them by myself. Yeah, in a Falkenhagen I haven't, in a OSTWALL I haven't, and in a Richard it was difficult to distinguish if it's some personal stuff, a knife, or if it's just a metal rubbish because they were producing the stuff.
It's,
Above so below, good catacombs movie. Yes, everybody was mentioning it in the comments of mine, and I
yeah.
wouldn't say it's like the catacombs really are. It's like the Hollywood version of catacombs. I mean, the tunnel is collapsing in the deepest point, the youngest point, and it's collapsing right in a moment when this climax is happening. It's not happening like that. I mean, collapses are the danger underground, but they are not happening that often. I mean, it's like if you see a place, the rock that's soon's going to fall down, the possibility that you will see it falling down from the roof, it's actually lower than the chances of winning the lot. So it happens, yes, but it doesn't happen that often, like in this movie, for example. And all of the stories about some underground vampires or some weird stuff happening underground, because that's the questions probably going to come. I have never met anything that was even close to that. And I also keep asking the people if they found something or met some kind of, or even had the feeling of being there with somebody, even though they were there alone, and
Yeah.
nobody. Most
No.
of the people said they just have they like the feeling that they don't want to get in this tunnel, but it's not because of some kind of monsters that can live in there. They just have a bad feeling about this tunnel, and they learned to hear to it, to follow this, because that's actually a good advisor. And a friend of mine told me, I had a bad feeling before going to this tunnel, and 2 months later I saw this tunnel collapse. So that was probably why I had this bad feeling, and that's something.
What is the weirdest animal you've seen underground? I mean, I see some really weird spores, and I see a lot of frogs and bats.
Yes, some of them I even saved them from underground, because they, in a total darkness, they fall into the some kind of a well, and there was no possibility for them to get out. So that's when I'm trying to make their way easier. But the animals, no, most of the times I'm meeting actually in a caves, I'm meeting, or in a bunkers, I'm meeting the remainings of the animals. So it's either the,
Yeah,
yes, guano
yeah,
stuff, or it's either the dead body of some kind of animal that went down there and, yes,
and
started
you
to
can smell it.
decompose. Just, yeah.
And if it's a rodent, you
I
can
haven't seen
smell it.
any animals. In Israel, when I've been in Israel, I've met, but I didn't see them face to face. I just felt them, and I saw the bites. We met underground Borrelia, the second, the stuff which is bringing the Borrelia, the sickness to you. Ticks? No. This small animal insect that's getting into your skin, sucking the blood and getting bigger and
Oh,
bigger, and
leeches,
it can transfer. What?
leeches, the ones
Not
that
not
sit
the
on the
leeches.
skin and suck your blood.
Nah. It's a tick. I
Oh,
met underground ticks.
really?
Underground ticks. Yes, and they are really interesting because they are not transferring the Borrelia. They are not even staying inside your skin, and they are hibernating underground unless some carbon dioxide will happen in the ground. from me or from some kind of other animals. And if they feel the carbon dioxide, they actually wake up and they start to find a place between your clothes to get and bite you only once. And they bring recurrent fever, I think, not the Borrelia. I cannot translate this sickness.
Lyme disease.
No, not Lyme disease, not this one.
Isn't that
It's
what
the
ticks?
fever that's coming back to you every month unless you heal it somehow. The tick name in the Latin it's Ornithodoros tolosani, and that was a very interesting animal because yeah, that's the moment when I started to understand why some people were saying that the not the catacombs, that the tomb of the Tutankhamun was bringing you a bad luck or something like that. They actually could just put some kind of fungus on the wall. That if you open it, this fungus you will start to inhale it and you will die. It's very interesting what kind of animals or insects you can find underground that actually don't almost exist on the surface.
Especially with fungus and mushrooms, not mushrooms, but
Yeah,
that because most plants grow towards the light, but underground where
yeah,
everything's always dark, they grow in
yeah,
all sorts of different directions because there's no light to grow through or towards.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, and people always make fun about the bats, and that's one thing that drives me crazy. In Holland, Belgium, Germany, everywhere is a bat preserve. You can't go there because there are bats. And
yeah.
I don't.
6 months of the year it's out because
Yep.
the bats are sleeping there, and that's also something that's causing a lot of troubles on my side because I mean, it's not the law in Poland, but it's not welcome to visit the caves in the winter because of the bats that may actually sleep there. And it doesn't really matter if there's one bat or if there's 100 bats inside. It's some people just don't do it because of them. And undergrounds of Ostwall, there is a big reserve of the bats,
Yeah.
and that's like the biggest colony in Poland or in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It's like 40,000 units, and this population is kind of stable since last year's. I mean, maybe 2,000 of them came new, but this number of the population is still stable. But imagine you are the guy who's having the museum there. Yeah, and
Yes.
you are in charge of, like, I would say, 2 kilometers part of the underground in Ostwald, and you have a very interesting place that's not comparable with anything because the Maginot Line was way smaller when it comes to underground tunnels, and some other fortresses were not that undergroundly built like the Ostwall. And imagine you have such a big attraction, and 6 months of the year are out for you. You cannot do anything. You can let the people into the bunker, which is really an entrance to 32 kilometers tunnel system, but you cannot let them go down because of the baits. And that's something that's causing a lot of trouble. And in Poland, we tend to say that those ecological organizations who actually do stuff like that, they are bigger, worse than the mafia, because that's like a country inside the country within a country, and it's really difficult to get around them. And once I got an invitation from Polish TV to some kind of cooking program, and they said that we can cook underground, because if you want to do something with me, then let's do it underground, and if you guys do cooking, then let's cook underground. And I had to ask, I think, 3 offices to allow me to use open flame in those undergrounds we just showed on the pictures. Open flame, and only because I wanted to do it legally, because I'm
Yes.
going to post it on the TV, they will see it, and so on. But they don't even care that since 40 or 50 years, even so far, there are people going down there using camping ovens, starting a torch or whatsoever, but they are doing it illegally without the cameras and so on. And this population is still there. So the bus, I don't even know where is it. I have a picture next to those guys on the walls. That was
I've
the
seen.
place where I've been first time ever in the Ostwald. That was this room. I have the pictures too.
Uh, it's funny because the Fortress of Ebenemal, which is a big museum, big deal. They're scared to death that if bats move, and they spent millions of dollars for setting this museum up, that if a bat move in, they might get kicked out.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
it's really
I totally understand them. I would also be afraid that if you find, just like when you excavate a cave and you find one bone or even one small piece of the pottery, that's the worst thing you can find. You don't
yeah.
want it. You don't want
Yep.
to find it.
I
Because
mean,
then you have to halt your excavation. You will probably never get back to it again.
yeah,
Because if the archaeologists are going to come to this cave, then they will be excavating it like 1 centimeter per week in
yep.
their slow motion. Yeah, and that's the last thing you want. And the guy who is actually he's like the, I would say, the biggest and the oldest guy when it comes to caves excavation. Cave, not exploration, excavation in Poland. He told me, if you found something in the cave, don't tell it to anybody, because it may bring only problems to the cave, and you will probably never see this cave again, unless on your old picture.
And you see, that's the problem because, I mean, we are all about preserving history and safeguarding history. And my grandmother was an archaeologist, so I grew up around Viking graves, and you have Viking burials all over, say, Denmark. And if you are building a new house or a new business building and you dig and you find a skeleton, well, you are screwed because now your construction is going to stop until
Yeah.
the National Museum can dig it up, excavate the site, take whatever time they need to take. It could be a year. You could go bankrupt while waiting for this. And same thing everywhere else. The moment you find something, as the one we chatted about yesterday, that tunnel system. I know they
It's
were
not
digging.
only skeleton, it can also be, oil or the coal. That's a friend, that's a case of my friend. He bought a place for a house, and they discovered coal underneath it. And he wanted to start building this place, but they didn't allow him. And he already paid for this ground. And it took him like 2 years to get his money back and buy some other part, buy some ground in other part that's not
Yeah.
going to maybe be excavated soon.
And the stupid thing about the government authorities being the way they are, and it's the same thing for all the people that, about with the little animals. They found a snail or a little frog or something. I'm all about safeguarding animals and history, but the problem is if they are so draconian that they can shut down a location, shut down somebody building their house, they can destroy somebody financially or ruin the visits to a historical place, and people know that, then people are not going to say anything. If you build a house and you find something that might be important, you're not going to say anything because you don't want your construction stopped. So that is how you destroy history. You have to. There has to be
I
a
think
middle.
our law, that's I mean, I'm talking about Polish law. If it's not the smartest one to actually explore the truth and explore the past, because in Poland, for example, there's no such a thing as, let's say, like in a cave in Norway, they found 2 millions of the crowns hidden in a cave from drug trafficking, and the guys who found it went to the police like the normal Nordic people do.
Uh
Yes,
huh.
they went to the police. And police found out from who was it. This guy was already in a prison, but they gave them 10% each because of they founding the money. And that's
Hmm.
not much. I mean, you got 2 millions of corons, which is like $300,000, I think. So
Uh
you get 10% of it. Okay, it's not bad. You could have the all, but you made it white. But in Poland, there's nothing like that. Nothing. All you get if you bring such things to the police, or if you bring an old gun, for example, that you found in your cellar or stuff like that, you will get only troubles, man. It's
yeah.
like they will not pay you a money, they will confiscate anything. And in Poland, they are now doing, now it's happening since years, that they are very strong against the people who are detecting metal detecting stuff. And they are getting incognito on those boards of the people who exchange the information about the places, what they found, and so on, so on. And then they invite their house at the 5th or 6 a.m. in the morning, just because of they found something, some kind of a coins that were counterfeited in Polish medieval times. The most counterfeited coin, you can find it almost wherever you stick your shovel in Poland. But it's for them, probably it's an ancient thing, so we want to have it. But the worst part is with explosives and with the guns. I mean, in Poland, you can go to the prison if you have a rotten Mauser without the wooden parts, where the rifle, this place where the bullet is getting in, it's not. You cannot even look through it. But they may put you in a prison if you possess it, just because you possess a gun. For them, it's already a gun. So in
Hmm.
Poland, the government is doing everything, not to make people come to them and say, "Look what I found."
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The same thing all over the place. The moment you find something, you really don't want to tell anybody unless you really absolutely have to, because you know it's nothing but problem, and it's all over Europe. And environmental is one
And
thing.
in Britain, you get finding money too, because I heard about the guy who found a lot of golden coins from the Roman era, and he actually got rich after that. It was not that they gave him 100% of the amount it was worth, but they gave him, I think, more than 10%. So even something like that would be a good beginning, for the people to actually be
Yeah.
interested in that, and don't do it behind the shade or so.
Well, trust me, if I found a bucket full of gold coins, I'll get rich off it too. And I won't be talking about it.
I mean, you are not going to bring it to the police and saying, "Hey, guys."
Of course I am. Just like if I found 2 million kroner or dollars sitting in a cave somewhere, I would hand it in.
This is what happened in Poland in the 80s or 70s. I don't remember. There's a village called Lubiąż, and there is an old monastery, Christian monastery, built there somewhere in the medieval times. And SB, which is like the Stasi, but on the Polish side, they've been researching for this subject. They've been really interested in underground mysteries. They had special groups that were going there to check the place, because the gold and the jewelry they found, they were selling it to sponsor their missions, because the missions of this Stasi in Poland, some of them were expensive or abort missions. They were using the money that they hid or that they found, or that they actually earned somehow to sponsor it, because our currency had no wealth. And they found a big treasure of golden coins or silver coins. I don't remember so far, but from what I know is that half of those coins were actually stolen by the police officers who were they brought to, and by the people who went there in the night to start to excavate it. So it's also not like, especially in the eastern part of Europe, if you bring something that's that expensive and that's shiny to the police, that it will ever go further. It also may happen like you bring 100 coins, and then the guy who took it from you will write 90 coins. He will give it to another guy who will write 80 coins, and in the end effect, to the museum, where you may be happy when it's coming actually in with your name that you found it, there will be only 10 coins, and there will be 10 police guys with 10 coins in the pocket on the way. So this is the way how it also can happen.
And that's a problem when you don't pay the people in charge well. Then, well, I mean, whenever we did personal protection EP work in Eastern Europe or in Russia, there was always, all right, we'll find the highest ranking police officer we can, and we'll give him a bunch of money to keep us safe. And it seems like a much better idea. Just start at the top. But I mean, it's like I said, with the GPS account, I find that is why I don't share my Google Maps, because there's a lot of little different points and dots on there that
of interest. I know.
I will tell everybody where everything is when I found it, and I've documented it. And but that's also one of the reasons why officially you don't want to go to the Polish government and say you're looking for the gold train. I'm going to look for some other type of train. But if you say that, well, tell us where you're looking. Oh, well, you can't be allowed to live there, but we'll look for you.
No, you know what? I think if I would be the guy who has something similar to gold train, what I would do is I would first make sure that this place is there if it's within my possibilities. So maybe dig a tunnel underground and cover it with some bushes so that they don't see the entrance, throw the sand away somewhere far away so that they don't see the pile. And I would make a video out of it. I would record it.
Yeah.
And then I would call the government, make the official information about it. But on the same time, I would make a controlled leak to the media, like they did with the gold train. That somebody found the gold train, and media is going to exaggerate it like I found the biggest, underground city ever, even though it's going to be only one room. I don't care. But then everybody's going to talk about it, and people are going to have dollar signs in their eyes, when they will be reading news from it, when the newspaper people are going to spread the big idea of what there can be and bring the story back and so on, and bring the attention to the place. This is something that's a good or not good. I don't know.
But it's the only way to do it. You have to document it yourself, hide the documentation before you tell, because if you just and I keep going back to that episode in Jonastal where Peter Lohr with his GPR he found something that looked like underground cavities with the same size of the little boy bomb or nuclear bombs. He said that he saw three of them. He could point them out with the GPR. These were metal. These were tunnels. And he went to the official with it. Went to the press. It went to the mayor, the police, and uh, okay, if you have what you think is an underground tunnel with three nuclear bombs in from World War II, what is the local mayor going to do except have a heart attack and know that exactly? So he's just like, I don't know, go away. And literally, the authorities told him to go away, and he went away. And then he came back a month or 2 months later, and he went over the same place with a GPR, and he could see that where the tunnels had been collapsed from inside. Somebody been in there, the ground had been disturbed, and whatever was in the tunnels was gone, and they were collapsed. So the GPR signal is completely different. So he knows somebody has been in there. That's what you and that, I think that is the most. We don't know what was in there, but only the German or the American military in Germany would have what it takes to go in there, to go underground, remove something in the dead of night in secrecy, destroy it, and leave. No civilian person would be able to do that. But we're not told what they found, and that's again, it just makes us more weary of the government knowing that, and it's really sad because this could be a collaboration because it's so old. I know that if I drive up to Area 51, they're not going to let me in and they're going to put me in jail. And they should, because national security of today is going on in there. If I go to Austria and I want to dig up a tunnel that was made there 80 years ago, this should not be a secret anymore. But by keeping it a secret.
From the logical point of view, yes. But what I also believe is that the knowledge that Nazis had during the Second World War, they acquired this knowledge in some kind of a, I don't know which way. I don't want to make here some thoughts, but they acquired the knowledge. Nobody was so high technically as the Germans, as the Nazis. I mean, they were like 10 years up front, behind them was everybody else. So they got this knowledge from somewhere, and it couldn't happen just because, I don't know, German race is a better race than any other race. They are smarter and so on, because now we have IQ tests, we have everything, and we know that they are no different than French people. They are not different than British people or the people from the Scandinavian peninsula.
It's the motivation.
Motivation, I don't think so. I mean, yes, also it's a big part, but there is something, I cannot even specify it, but there is some kind of ancient, I think that's my personal opinion, that they have been able to get into some kind of ancient knowledge that's telling somehow other stuff is working. And because of that, I think that that's still not over, because maybe what's inside those tunnels would reveal something that would totally rewrite the history and change the way that we actually look on what happened during the Second World War. It may be still changing now, and just because of that, they may know about it, and they don't want to add other people to get in, because I know how is it with a science when you have a new theory about something. It's, when you have a new theory, it's really difficult to convince the people who written the old theory that this is not like you guys did, you were wrong, there is something other. And you have to reprint so many books, to change so many classes in a school, whatever level of the school it is. And yeah, some people are like not it's for them better to let the people let the things stay like they are now than actually to take a risk and maybe find something new, something game changing, I would say. And I think
you're right.
It's been so many years, but the knowledge that's there in the eyes of government, we are still not ready to have it.
I tend to lean in that direction as well. Because that is the only logical explanation. You can when everybody who did it during the war are dead, then it can't really be about public embarrassment anymore, because I mean they're gone and we all sort of know. So you can let that information out unless it is something that would affect world events today. And that's the wild card. That's the elephant in the room.
Why did they make, the Rudolf Hess case that he went to Ukraine?
Oh, God. Yes.
Oh, it was just the over conversation starter. I didn't even suppose you cannot know it. But what I wanted to say, I think they made the document secret for 50 years or 70 years, something like that. And shortly, like last year, I think they made it for a longer 50 years.
Yeah,
So why is that? That's only one German guy coming to the UK, and he was probably sick on his head because he believed in some kind of esoteric stuff. And so there has to be some
yeah,
knowledge that they came to have, and that's still not being told to us before. And yeah, I believe that there is some kind of ancient knowledge that's being hidden from us, and that the Nazis actually got a part of it, at least a part. Because if you see how much history is actually trying to say that stuff, places that the pyramids are 5,000 years old or 7,000 years old, which is actually not the case, because on the Sphinx you can see this
yeah,
water erosion marks. Yeah, that they were trying to tell that Göbekli Tepe was 2,000 years old, and it didn't work. So they said 4,000 years old, 6,000 years old. It all didn't work either. Now they are saying it's 8,000 years old, and I think it's kind of older. So why they are doing so much
yeah.
to preserve this knowledge, even though it's not Second World War? It's a fucking knowledge. Like 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, people were, I don't know, digging a hole with a stick in the ground.
Yeah.
They had nothing, no tools, no nothing. So why is this knowledge so still hidden from us? Why is the academia still doing so much for us not to see that? And I think those all of the
Yes.
stuff are somehow connected. There is some kind of a different knowledge level that we are not supposed to get to,
Yeah.
and this level is just higher, and it's coming from, and now I'm going to jump really really crazy, but that's my personal opinion. It's coming from some kind of ancient times, which we don't know that much
I
as we
was
should.
I was just going to go there. I don't see a problem with an ancient previous high tech civilization. That also leads a
That's
little
actually
bit
what I believe
into
in.
you look at Himmler's interest in history and archaeology. Um, but one thing that really brings that up was a couple of years ago there was an excavation in Mexico where they found tools, man-made tools that were some three hundreds of millions of years, either a 300,000 or it was 3 million. I don't remember. It was a lot older than accepted human civilization, and they found tools
Actually, in Mexico, which is America, which is the almost last place where the Homo sapiens actually officially get to.
officially. Yeah, so they brought in a geologist, and she had nothing to do with the dig, and she confirmed that the earth layers that these man-made tools were in predated human civilization by hundreds of thousands of years. She got fired from the university. She got banned. She got blackballed. They did everything they could to destroy her career. And I always remember that because she had nothing to do with this. She just stated the fact. She's
Yeah,
a
and made them.
geologist. She looks at numbers and data and chemical. And you see that all over the place, that anybody who has an historical information, and I'm not going to go to ancient aliens because some of what they do is a bit of a stretch and some of it isn't. But if you look at the rune stones they're found in the middle of America, every time you find a rune stone showing the Vikings were way further inland in America than just up in Nova Scotia, those rune stones just disappeared. They go to the Smithsonian. The police will pick them up and send them to the Smithsonian.
Smithsonian. That's always the museum name that's coming up when they mention some olden civilizations. That most of the times it's like Smithsonian took it and nobody ever saw it again.
That's correct. I have a friend who works there, and I continuously make fun of her. She works in the art department. But it seems that there's a concerted effort, just like what you said, of hiding historical information that does not fit with the mainstream laid out timeline. And it cannot just be because Professor so and so he wrote a book about it, and then Professor so and so wrote a book about Professor so and so's book, and then Professor number four wrote a book about what Professor. And
And it's something about. I mean, if this old civilization actually existed, and I believe it is, that's like a theory that's very much fitting into my stuff. I think this civilization was based on a totally different rules than we have. And I
Hmm.
don't mean the rules like don't kill, don't steal, or I don't know,
No,
do something else. But I mean the rules like on which this all was based. And I think it was a little bit different from the mind perspective. I mean, people could do more with their mind, maybe even somehow use it or so. And maybe this is the knowledge that everybody is still hiding, because since the beginning of the human race, you have stories about some ancient catastrophic that happened, the
yeah,
flood that happened. All of the people around are telling about it. You have so many similar. Why everybody all over the planet were building the triangular pyramids? Why they were not building them circle or square? Why it was always like that? And regardless if it's a Burma or if it's a Mexico or somewhere else.
yeah.
And that's like the knowledge. I think that's they don't want to let us know about this knowledge, because it would be too much game changing from us. And I think they want us to be focused on Instagram, Netflix, new stuff, and so on, to believe in the social media metaverse and so on,
News.
instead of doing anything else to get out or to
Yeah.
stand up from the
I
life.
mean, everything has, especially, we're supposed to grow into a more technological advanced age where we are supposed to be smarter and more intelligent. And instead, we are now relying more and more on 15-minute media circles that will just cycles that will just confuse you. You get all these different information from different places that just keeps you on edge. And nobody stops, takes a step back, and look at the bigger picture or ask bigger questions, because no, we can't have critical thinking. And I see the more advanced and more information we should have, the more people are allowed to display independent and critical thinking of events or news or media or history. And it's very strange. It's very strange that especially historians don't have more of an intellectual curiosity, because if one, they always said, it's like the Vikings and the tattoos. There are two trains of thought. The Vikings did not have tattoos because we never found a Viking body with tattoos. Well, the Vikings destroyed and burnt their bodies, so there's a good reason for that. However, logic says the Vikings had tattoos because they traded with people who had tattoos. They were around people who were tattooed, and the technology existed before, during, and after. So of course they did. They were flashy people. Why not? But you have two types of historians: the ones who says logical dictates that they did because it existed before, during, and after, and then the other side that says we haven't found any, so we can't say it existed. And
Yeah, that yeah, it brings me the idea of this conversation in Joe Rogan podcast between Graham Hancock and this kind of a skeptic guy who was really, really against him, and he was like, "Bring me the proof, show me the plastic battle of this old civilization." And he was like, "Why do you think they were based on the plastic? It's like our idea. Maybe they found something different, something biodegradable and stuff like that."
I
But
mean,
there are also many stories, like we said before, that are, I think, being placed there just to make this whole idea of looking of the ancient civilizations ridiculous.
yeah,
One of them is because then you put some kind of fucked up story like the flat earth, or the story about the mud flood that happened somewhere between 17th and 18th century, which is like my favorite example because it has totally nothing to do with the reality. I mean, people are going to the old cities like Krakow, yeah,
yeah,
and they are going to the main church in this city, and they are showing you that the bottom windows from the first level of this church are actually underground, which means there has
yeah.
been a flood in 18th or 19th century or 17th or 18th century, which is like, I'm thinking like, guys, why you think that? Why do you think the whole planet, all of the China, India, Arabic world, Europea, they are all hiding the flood from us from 200 years ago? I don't
Yeah,
think so, actually. And those buildings are deeper. I think you know which story I'm talking about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Same thing
Yeah,
happened in London as well. Same thing. You have
yeah,
things,
but
you have buildings built on
you know
buildings.
why is this level difference coming? Where is it coming from?
Yeah, and it's I.
But yeah, just so that I finish, because you had 800 years of human walking around this wall, and all of those people had some dirt in their shoes if they had shoes. All of those people were riding a horse, which actually shit there. And in 6 or 800 years, you can elevate the floor of the city for like 6 or 8 meters. And that's actually a case. It happened in Paris catacombs. I was researching about one cemetery of the innocent people in the middle one, the one which they started as the first one to remove. And the bodies that were dug there on the small city square, they lifted the ground like 4 meters above the original level, only the bodies. And you have the streets where the horses were walking and the cows were walking for hundreds of years. They were taking a dump there, you know. So it was the place where you were removing your dirt water to the street, you know. So it was elevating very slowly, but it was elevating. And also when there was some, I don't know, from the east, Tatars or somebody, Huns coming with Genghis Khan, because we also had it in 12th century in Poland.
Yes.
When they were burning the city down, the basements were staying there, but above the basement there was only the ash. So this is how you can see somehow 2 or 3 stories of the buildings underground, and you may wonder why. This is the reason. Some of the cities in Poland, on the eastern border of Poland, they were burned and rebuilt in a matter of 400 or 300 years, like 15 or 20 times,
Yeah.
because the eastern Moscow, from the Moscow people were coming, or from the Mongolia, the Mongols with Genghis Khan, they were coming, taking people slave and so on. So it's not easy to give a reason to that. And there's also another guy with such a stories that I think are there either because people want to believe it, or that somebody put it to us so that he can say, and you know, this old civilization theory, it's like the flat earth and mud theory, because if you place it in a surrounding of such a two ridiculous theories, you put this one, then this one is also ridiculous, you know. So
Yeah.
that's why I started to dig a little bit, and there is something like var, VAR, and that's like the Persian word for underground. And that's a theory, conspiracy theory, telling you that somewhere in the special places of the planet there were underground bunkers built for the people for nuclear winter, and it was all built before our era. And sometimes you can see the geometrical stuff that's connecting it with the castles or whatsoever. And this guy who is running this website in Poland, he actually saw me getting into the catacombs. He wrote to me a message. I said, you know what? Let us talk. I'm open to everything. And we spent
Yeah.
2 hours talking. And he was trying to convince me that Paris catacombs are such a place. There's an underground var, there's an underground place bigger, and they want to hide it from us. That the line crossing the Paris center is crossing with the lines of some kind of underground system with a city that has WAR in the name, which means it's a sign. And I told him, dude, why you think catacombs were made by somebody else than the normal story says? And he said,
Yeah.
because it's not possible for people in the Roman times to dig such tunnels. I was like, what?
No.
That's actually totally possible, even with a stick and a stone. And he told me there are 300 kilometers there. How you can dig 300? I say, you know why there are 300 kilometers there? Because there was a wild excavation that took like 500 or 600 years. They actually almost completely removed 2 strata of the limestone from beneath the city, and
Yeah.
there was nobody telling them, hey guys, you have to leave a little bit to support the city above us because it's going to collapse. Nobody did it. And for 500 years, they were just excavating everything, leaving the void underground. And those voids started to collapse.
Yes, it
So
did.
Paris City had to start to send the miners back down, even though they were not excavating anymore, they were filling in. And they left only small passages between under the cities to control the strata plate above to see if it's cracking or not. And this is how, from a big open space that got divided into a small part, you have suddenly 3 or 5 or even 500 kilometers of tunnels underground. And it's not a big deal to build it within, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 generations. And that's not a hard stone like a basalt. That's a limestone. You can dig it actually not even with a metal. If you can dig it with a wood, and it will work probably. It works, but it will work. And that was the moment when the guy never actually talked to me again, even though I was interested in that. And even though some of his theories could make sense and I would like to explore them more. But in the moment when he saw, I'm not going to swallow this history because I've been to the place, I've been to the site, I saw it. And with my own eyes and experience of spending 100 hours there, I can say it's not like you say. Then it was like
Yeah.
destroying his whole idea of it. And maybe it was too painful for him. I don't know. But I'm the guy who wants to believe it. I'm really, please convince me there is something more and tell me where to dig. I will. I want to get in. But God damn it, convince me first.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, that there's so much, and it's interesting because there are so many so many rumors and gossip that the disinformation is interesting. But what you also have is you have now established a history that is not necessarily based on facts. All with just World War II, you have a history that is little questionable in some parts. But because it's been established, because sometimes, for instance, the Nuremberg laws were ruled on some of them, you are no longer allowed to ask any questions about it, because then you are the crazy one. So when and I have found people that has, I'm not going to mention any, and I'm not going to mention any names because I know I would get in trouble, and that is really sad that we can't have an open, honest conversation. I have found people that in everyone's minds are the most horrible human beings in the world, but when you really start digging into what we have been told they've done, you find nothing, or you find no proof, no documentation, and yet every household knows them as a horrible person. And I'm sitting there thinking, instinctively, I would like to defend this person or this person's reputation because it doesn't seem the information is correct. But I can't, because then I would be labeled as the crazy one. And what kind of world is that? I mean, it's sad we have gotten to a point
That's
where we
not a
can't.
fair place. Let's face it. World is not a fair place, and we just have to be smart and to see how it works, and then either find a way around or something like that. Because yeah,
We'll
I,
hide
I
in the
have
tunnel.
it also very often, especially when it comes to underground. If I would know how much difficulties I will have with recording just the underground, that's a hole in the underground. Most of the people don't even care, but you have no permission to get into this cave. And there are 10 people in Poland who may recognize this cave from the walls. So don't post it internet because we will have troubles because we have no permission from the bot managing center that we can get in.
Yeah.
Second, oh, there is a but, so you have to blur it out. Or don't show my face because I also don't want to be there. Or don't show those stalactites because we are not supposed to be there. And even here in Sangerhausen, we got a deal with the guy. Deal sounds like there is money involved. There is not. Just
An
a friend of
agreement.
mine, the German guy, actually speak to the guy from this mine who is the owner of it and who's running a tourist track there. And he also told me, if you want, you can record. There's not a problem, but you can record only in the official part. When I take you to the unofficial part, you cannot record. Sorry. I'm like, that's the most important, interesting part that I want to record. The part which you want to let me record. Everybody saw it and can buy a ticket for a fucking €5 and get in there and see the same stuff I did. The part which but it's the trouble for him. He's not allowed to let the people there. So if he will show that somebody was there with him and he was guiding him, he may even lose the lease. So
Yeah.
from the other side, I want to understand it, but it's a very difficult. It's like, I think as in not even as a country or as a nation, but as a race, we became over regulated.
By all means, and especially, I was going to say, especially in Europe, because dear Lord, that's one of the reasons why I ended up living here, because the regulations and the rules and the taxes. It was just, I don't want to do, no, it's just you ruin everything. But the interesting thing about that is you take, if you take freedom away from people like you've done in Europe to a big degree, you do it in Europe, you do it smart, you do it slowly.
Yes.
More rule. Every morning you wake up, there's another rule, and people, they don't notice, and you don't complain because it'll be fine. It'll be fine. After 20, 30 years of saying it'll be fine, now you have a world with cameras everywhere, and you can't get permissions, and everything is bureaucrats, and everything says no, and well, that's what you get. How do you dial that back? I don't know if you can.
I
We
don't
just,
know either.
and the word risk.
The power that you have achieved in some way, you don't want to give it back. If you became the guy who is deciding whether this or this is going to happen, you don't want to do it only for 2 years. You want to do it forever.
Yeah, and well, as I said, freedom isn't free, and that's whatever that really means for individual people. But yeah, we live in interesting times, and
I would rather live in a boring time.
I mean, I don't know. I think I would like to go back and be rich and 25 in Berlin in 1920.
Oh yes, it would be interesting. It was the most open city when it comes to, I don't know, some kind of sexual experiences on the planet at this time. And you
I'm
was actually
upset.
I'm living in a flat which is supposed to be built only because there was a demand for one flat with one big room, small kitchen, and small toilet.
Yep.
So that was the demand for the women who were serving the oldest job on the planet. And it was actually so many of them in Berlin that it was almost in every building on the site, there was built something like that, which is four flats, one upon the another, with this configuration that I have. Small single room, I mean, a big single room with a high ceiling, small toilet, small kitchen, so that this woman can live there and can host their guests, her guests.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, I think that yeah, it's interesting when I was researching, and I'm doing profiles on Himmler and Goebbels, and so I have to go back from the 19th turn of the century, and you look up material, pictures, videos from the 20s. Holy whoa! And I'm a pretty liberated guy, but the pictures you see, and they go like, wow, they had it going on. I'm like, really? I thought Vegas was kind of ranchy. That's nothing. And yeah, I guess Berlin was fun. And like you think, well, there's not that much fun anymore. But what the hell? So where are we going this year? What should we do? What about Switzerland? There's a couple of places there.
Oh yes, they are, but that's a country. I mean, they have their shit put together. That's what I have
Yeah, I
to say
know.
about them. And to do anything there would be difficult. And to do anything there without them knowing about it, it's close to impossible for me. I
Well,
mean, in the Eastern Europe, it's relatively loose. I mean, you can still do there many stuff, many things. In Germany and Austria, it's already difficult, but I think if the place is there where it's more difficult, then it's Switzerland, because those guys, they know what's been happening there, they know what they are hiding, and they are a smart society. If there is something sketchy going on, they are the first ones who are going to call somebody to just
oh
check it
yes.
out.
Oh yes. I mean, when I was the last couple of years when I was visiting friends in Germany, I was stayed at a couple of friends' houses for a couple of days, and they're like, "Oh, could you please park across the street because we're only allowed to have one visitor?" I'm like, so basic, and that's the interesting thing about Germany. I thought the lesson takeaway from World War II was to not blindly be obedient to one authority and ask questions and not snitch on your neighbors and stuff like that. I thought that was the takeaway from World War II of don't do's, and they're doing the same thing now. It's
Yeah, they are actually encouraging people to go to
yes,
the police and say that your friend didn't get the job and he got it illegally or stuff like that. It's still
or
happening.
he has two cars in the driveway. There's two people visiting. It's not a lot. I'm like,
Yes, and I don't like it. I mean, in Germany, you have rules and laws for such a ridiculous things. I mean, you are not allowed to ride your car when it's almost empty. You cannot tank every time for 10 euros. You have to tank it full or to the half. And if the police is going to catch you driving through the city when your tank is almost empty, when this emergency light is happening, you will get a fine.
really?
Because it's not allowed in case you will get stuck in a traffic and your car will be not movable. Just in case of that, you have a rule for that. That's a rule I found out like 2 weeks ago after 10 years in Germany. But there is also other one. It's even more ridiculous. I don't know how to say it. If you go to the forest to collect the mushrooms. We do it a lot in Poland,
Yeah.
and we take these wild mushrooms, we cook them, we make it a sauce with a meat or stuff like that. It's actually pretty common in Europe.
Yeah.
So in almost in the western countries, it's not allowed to do that. In case you will collect the wrong mushroom and you will eat it, you will die. But in Germany, it is allowed. But you have a limit. You can collect only up to 1 kilo for a year for a head. And there is literally nobody enforcing this law, literally nobody obeying it, because there's no way to control all of the people who walk around out of the forest with the basket full of the mushrooms, if it's 1 kilo or above, or a bit. There's no way to do it, but they have it in the law. It's
I mean,
crazy.
I remember when there was a law came out of the EU that you couldn't buy certain vacuum cleaners because they're too powerful.
Yes.
or some years ago when you couldn't buy cucumbers unless they were straight, and you think,
Yes, so
what
they wanted to put
lunatic.
to look nice. The other side of this story is when you buy a tomato in a Germany and you actually throw it from the over the window from the second floor, it will bounce instead of splash. But it looks nice, so that's what the people want, you know.
If they know, well, they know they'll. But I may have an invitation. I may have an invitation to us to a place in Switzerland. There's some of the old defensive caves and bunkers built into mountains, and I know somebody who knows somebody who bought one, and it still has the shells and the armor and the cannon because by buying it, they had to sign off that if Switzerland was ever attacked, they had to go use it and defend the country. So they own a fully equipped fort. We will start with that. And there's a couple other places, but you're right. Let's see how much trouble we cannot get into.
Yeah, but when it comes to the plans, I think I know you've been to OSTWALL before, but you haven't been there with me.
I know we
And
started talking about that. There's a place you still have a suspicion there's some bodies in there.
yes, there is, but I mean, you have to give me 30 seconds because I just drank all of the club mate and my bladder is not going to make it. So can you please give me 30
Go
seconds?
for it. In that case, I will tell you all what. What are we doing? Yeah, so next week I've broken down the second episode from Yugoslavia, and it was really a lot of work because there's a lot of stories of secret missions that actually took place. And the funny thing about secret missions is there are no photos of them. So that was my biggest thing in getting a lot of these stories told is literally finding the photos. And we talked about that on the last chat that I'm going to reach out to you guys because I need a little bit of help in researching for photos from times. And I'm going to put up on the website 3 drop boxes because I'm getting ready with more of the Himmler special profile and Goebbels and Goering and the Annenherbe in some not specific order. There's going to be at least 3 episodes of each. And literally, I could do things quick. Being myself only doing it alone, I can do it quicker. You guys help me with the photos. So if I set up a Dropbox, you guys can sort of help me finding some of these things. But don't go crazy until I tell you what I'm actually looking for, and don't email them. And I'm still sorry that I haven't checked all my emails. I'm still like 400 of them behind. I'm trying. Anyway, Eastwall. Back to you.
Yes, that's a place which is very special for me because that's a place where my whole passion started, and I'm really glad that I have a possibility to cooperate with the museum that's there and to be a guide there. If I have a group that they trusted me so much without even taking some kind of special history lessons or whatsoever. Actually, this year I'm preparing myself to do a little bit of documentaries from the OSTWALL, but to make it a little bit more discovery alike than adventurous alike, because I know the place, I know the history, and I know the technical issues that are connected with that. And I would just want to put it through to the YouTube. And if I will start doing that, I promise I will be doing it with the English titles because I will already have the text prepared and it's going to be way easier. So OSTWALL, there has been some places in which not Russians, Germans hid the stuff from the museum of Friedrich Kaiser Wilhelm, I think, in Poznan. So they removed it and they put it in the underground in 2 chambers on the south of this complex. And these parts were probably they were found by the Russians, and the Russians probably after they found it, they collapsed the tunnel, they exploded it, and those tunnels were actually dug through. I think like 10 or 15 years ago, this collapse was dug through, and they reached to these rooms, and they were actually empty, which is not surprising. But then some people say that's it. There's nothing more. But I still see signs of the people who are actually looking for something. And the better I know this complex, the more I hear from the other people. And the people are looking for some tunnels that are, of course, that are somewhere hidden, that are either parallel or something like that. And What I know that I found it, I saw it actually, that there is one. Can you find the map of the OSTWALL, please, online from Wikipedia maybe, and put it on a
That
screen?
one?
Not the one which is showing you the undergrounds. So put OSTWALL in Wikipedia and you should find it.
Which?
The one from the Wikipedia showing the net of the underground tunnels.
That one. That one.
Yes. Can you please make it bigger a little bit?
Yep.
Yeah, so you have in the middle of the screen, a little bit at the bottom, you have Pniewo. That's the museum. And you can see those three objects that belong to the museum. Yes,
Yeah.
but if you go lower, there is some place called the PZ Panzerwerk 783. And that's a very interesting place because that's a place where I found some, there is a sewage that's underneath the tunnel. Yes, it's going beneath the rails. And somebody was digging through the bottom of the sewage because there was no water running there, not sewage, just the rainwater. They dig through these tunnels, those openings. They opened them and they started to dig one tunnel, not parallel but perpendicular, like looking. There is a W. You see it? W next to 783.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting tunnel because first of all, they started to dig in this tunnel like to the direction of the north, I think, and it happened generally in this part. But if you look at this part, you see the symbol of N. N means Sprengnischen. Sprengnischen is the place like the hole in the wall where you can put explosives.
Yeah.
So you can cut off this part of the tunnels. If the enemy got like the place 783,
Yeah.
next to the Inga, you can see this N, which means Sprengnischen, and they were supposed to explode it there so that people from 783 cannot go to the main road underground. So it's logical, yes? But
Except for
why
the
is this?
location.
What?
Except for the location of them. It will be better to be here so they could seal off
That's
that
what I mean.
part.
That's
But
what I mean.
yeah.
And actually, this tunnel, which you can see there, I've been at the end of this tunnel, and it's really crazy because this is the tunnel. There is this Panzersperre, Drachenzahn. I don't know how to spell it in dragon teeth. Those beton pillars, concrete pillars are in front. It's like the longest anti-tank barrier on the planet. I think it's 11 kilometers long.
Yeah.
And before this place, there's actually not supposed in front of this line. There's not supposed to be any kind of construction or military constructions because that's a place you shoot at when the tanks are coming. You don't want to have a bunker there. And those tunnels are going in front of those lines. They are going further than this line, and they are going to the wrong direction because actually you wanted to have your all background on the western side, not on the eastern side from where the enemy is coming. So if you have this Sprengnischen behind the 783, it's already weird. But that's not the weirdest part in this tunnel because this W symbol, W means Wache, and Wache is the place where you can defend yourself underground. That's most of the times it was built in front of the straight tunnel, which is like 1.5 kilometers straight. And at the end there, it was turning a little bit. And in this turn, there was this place where it was the old machine gun in the plants. Actually put behind the metal plate, and you could shoot 1.5 kilometers in front of you at least and kill everything which is in this tunnel because there was no way to run to the sides, and this place is always in the direction of the bunkers that was protecting. So from this W, which is in at the underneath the 716, you would expect it to shoot to 783.
786. Yeah. Yes.
You see a W under 716. Yeah, there is a W next to 783. There is like the two tunnel. You see, there is a tunnel turning left, left, left. Yes, and there is a W. You see the blow symbol of the tunnel. Yeah, and the other one, the one which is a little bit more to the north, it was supposed to. I mean, if you think logically, like most of the Germans thought, it should shoot in a direction of 783, doesn't it? If you want to defend this part of the tunnels with this place. But this one is the only one in the whole bunker that's shooting in both sides, which makes literally no sense.
No.
And that's not everything. If you go to the end of the tunnel on 783, this tunnel is actually, the construction is being end on the other turning, and in this turning you can see there is a tunnel on the side with a room, and that's exactly the same room as you can see there with this Wache. So they actually, at the end of the tunnel, they started to make a place to actually shoot somebody who's going to get to this direction. That makes literally no sense to me.
At the end
So
of the
that
tunnel? No.
I would consider this part to be interesting. And because I don't know the reason, and I've been asking many people who are doing it for many years, why were the people digging not even parallel to the tunnel, but perpendicular to the tunnel? And only idea I could have is that there was some hidden entrance to those tunnels, which is no more there, not anymore there. They was just using it as a technical entrance to get the shit out, the sand out, or stuff like that. That's the only possibility, but that still doesn't explain why was it so much reinforced, with this Wache, with this Nischen. You see, there are so many Sprengnichen in this place, and
There is, yes.
kind of an interesting part. Similar part is actually happening with 713, but there's not so much defenses. 713 is a little bit to the south. Yes, and if you go to the north, please. More. Yes, there is A62 on the left side, next to the Otto and Berta. Higher, and left.
862?
A62. There is Otto and Berta text, and left from it there is an A62. I don't see your. Go to the left, please. Right, then it's your right.
Ah. Wait a minute.
No. I wanted to.
Yeah, I need to go that way.
No, go to the right. Yeah, right.
Yeah, there is no. I don't have a right slide.
73. You can see it. It's above it.
It's this way.
It is already. You are too far.
A62. I thought I was looking for 862. Never mind. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and this is supposed to be one of the 5 planned entrances to this whole complex. From those 5 entrances that they planned, they started to build 3. A62 is the second one, but they managed to build only one, which is A62, which for 64, which is even lower. But this entrance A62, it's also very interesting because it was heading into the direction of this village called Kęszyca Leśna. That's the village that used to be like a Kaserne, like the barracks for the military before the war. And after the war, there was some kind of radio unit of the Soviet army stationing there. It was not even located on a map. But if you have a tunnel which is getting out of the ground, then this tunnel is always made in a way so that it can also take the water out.
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of
water
that the water get out. So if you had it in A64, then why in A62 they decided to dig 200 or 300 meters long tunnel, which is only 1 meter high, to take the water out? Like they were planning to build it to the end, to get out with it. So they could use something temporarily. They didn't have to dig a 300-meter long tunnel, which is 140 originally. But if you put the concrete, it's 120. But you have to put the woods for the framework for the concrete to be poured in. And it's very, very difficult job because you cannot even stretch your back when you are standing and digging this tunnel. And they somehow decided to do it. Other part are those hidden floating parts behind the North Wall. That's also a place that's interesting for me because there is nothing hidden there. The water level is actually dropping. The blue tunnels on the right, on the left, yours. The water level is dropping like half a meter a year, which means I think 10 more years and you will be able to get to the end of those tunnels without getting your foot wet, which is quite possible. But those are also the tunnels that are getting outside of this first defense line. So it's like they were digging the tunnels that were going into the wrong direction, kind of, It's like and the people who I've been asking, they cannot even imagine Yeah, what could be the reason you wanted to have some bunkers in front of those dragon thieves? What for? It was destroying the whole conception of this
Yeah,
deep line. Because
yeah, the
what they
dragon teeth.
wanted to
Yeah,
do is they first make the Soviets or Polish people, because they were building it against Polish people, to make them not get through the dragon's teeth. And if they get through the dragon's teeth, then to start to shooting them. But they also had some kind of T-works. T-works is it's a bunker that's actually having no place to shoot in front where the enemy is coming. It can only shoot to the sides or to the back. And
like
those were
magical
the
line.
silent Panzer works. And they were supposed to speak only when the enemy crossed the first line. So
Yeah,
what for you needed a tunnel that were so expensive to get to the level to the place where the enemy was coming from? And
yeah,
that's
because the
also
enemy would be coming from this direction. You pointing that way with no. Yeah, that makes no
that
sense unless they were planning at the end of these to build more. But
maybe because the Germans megalomania is actually famous in the planet. Everybody knows they like to build big, and if I would tell you what are that this what you can see, it maybe I don't know 30% of what they wanted to build. Then it's difficult to believe that they built 32 kilometers and it was still not sufficient for their needs, and they really wanted to build something big. Of course, there are also logical explanations to those anomalies. Like in the A62, they started to dig it and then they couldn't finish it out of whatever reason, so they had to emergency dig this place to take the water out because it was collecting there and flooding everything. It can also be like that. I am not saying with those tunnels in Kęszyca that are getting outside of the defense perimeter in the wrong direction. I heard the theory that there were a lot of brown coal mines on this area, and the Germans, before they started to build, they were buying those mines and using them to stuff to put the sand in, so that they don't have to extract it all over to the surface. And maybe it happened that in those places there was the tunnels that were actually good connected with the undergrounds they had. So they decided that they don't have to dig it; they will just use the space and maybe use the tunnel. That can be the possibility. What I cannot find any kind of possibility besides maybe looking for a secret entrance that Germans buried over after the war, because they didn't need it. They need it only for some small phase of the construction. Is the stuff which I showed you underneath
yeah,
with this 783, where the shooting places were placed. It's the only place in 32 kilometers long complex that those shooting sites are placed in both directions, not in a one, and that's already something interesting. And
I mean,
also now
I
I'm
mean,
trying to
even these are interesting because what are you? I mean, if what are you going to blow? The whole idea is to blow up the tunnel if somebody gets in.
yes,
How? So
so
what in
they
here?
cannot get, so that they cannot get further. It was not like to cave it in when people were there. It was just to disconnect it from the whole complex.
Yeah, but where are they going to? I mean, why would you not put this here? Because if the Russians would get in, they would get in the fort here, then come
Yes,
down, then you would blow. You wouldn't blow it on the other side of the fort. It,
yes.
it
But
makes
what
no
I
sense.
also have to tell here, maybe to cool it a little bit down, because I really try to stand with my both feet firmly on the ground. And if there is some theory that I'm starting to get in, I'm trying to look for the counter theories. And here, this part which you see from Inga to the bottom, that's actually one of the three experimental groups they've built. First of the
Jeez.
experimental groups is the group in a shield fortress. So they started to build it from the segments and so on, and it didn't work that well. But they were still learning how to do it. The second step was, I'm sorry, the first step was Ludendorff fortress, and the second step was the Schill fortress, which is a small underground system digged from outside. I mean, they just opened the hill, started to build the tunnels there. They
Hmm.
located the underground barracks with a lot of place for the generators and so on. They connected only two bunkers with it, and they used also a little bit different stuff, but they got their lesson, and then they started to build their third experimental site underground. And this Pętla Boryszyńska, Burschenschleif, that's actually the experimental site. So that's where we may see some big treasure or secret hidden underground beneath those tunnels. This may be just an old, maybe, I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying that there is such a possibility, an old relic of some kind of try and error did by Germans.
Is this a small one we usually sleep in?
No, this is the
That's not
one
the one,
that
right?
is the most difficult because of the guy, the woman who actually has it. That's north from Pniewo. It's the part which is actually accessible. And can you scroll a little bit up, please? Higher. A little bit more higher. Yeah, there's a place 732, and that's also an interesting place next to Berta. Yes, I've been sleeping there. That's a place where I met this friend after 2 years of not seeing him, and he met me, and we've both been mentioning each
732.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I came there once to a party, and this guy told me, wait, there is a full hour coming. I want to hear the news. I was like, what kind of news you want to hear here underground? And this guy took an old radio. It was like old, Soviet time radio that's really heavy and so on. He took it and said, no, there are news coming in a full hour. I was like, but if they are coming or not, you won't be able to hear it. There's no way. We are 30 meters underground. He told me, yes, we are, but I will be able to hear it because of the deep waves or stuff like that. I said, yeah, why? How it works? He said, tangens, cotangens. I was like, all right. And then he turned the radio on and we heard the news.
30 meters down.
Only the first program of Polish radio was working there because there's something radio frequency stuff that I cannot even imagine, but it was really interesting in this place. But you can clearly see they started to build from the bottom, from the south.
Yes.
They were digging to the north, and they had some ways out. Actually, this part on the south, that's the part which is the best finished, and it has all over the rails there for the trains and so on. It's almost finished underground. The parts of the north, they had some difficulties there with the underground rivers, underground flows of the water. They had to make waterproof walls. Everything was sinking, and so on. And they actually had some difficulties, and they didn't finish the whole part.
Yeah.
But the south part is the part which is the most preserved one, and it's actually it's a different government entity which is governing.
Oh yes, I remember that
part. Different. I would say how to say it, like the not the land, the different administrative part of Poland. It's actually dividing it into two. Those are conquering with each other, and it's like not the best idea for this because they cannot cooperate like they would like to.
I know it's weird. Underground in the tunnels, they actually closed off a part between the two city municipalities.
Yes. That's what I wanted.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's also the difficult, and there's also some nasty stuff happening. I don't want to mention it aloud, but it's a crazy story. What I also wanted to say here was now I'm going to be a little bit less specific. I'm not going to say about which parts of the tunnel I'm actually talking about, but I've seen a map, and that map is only I would say a little bit of a secret. It's not like super top secret that I got it from somebody and so on. I saw a map, and that's like the inventarization. You understand this word in English? Inventarization? Yeah, so that's when you actually get to the shop and check which kind of product you have, which one you don't, because people were buying and you are not familiar with what you have. So they did it with Germans actually there, and those tunnels that are now 31.5 kilometers long. Actually, in this document from 1933, they say it was 33 or 33.5 kilometers. They are at least 2 kilometers missing from what the Germans said there is, and from what the Germans left to us. So, and now there are two theories. The first theory is like there is something hidden. That's the theory we want to be true. And the second theory is like, yeah, they were being paid for a meter of the tunnel. So if they knew that nobody is going to control if this kilometer or two are there, they are going to say, yeah, we made 2 kilometers more and they pay us for those 2 kilometers, and they never happened. And this is the way it worked because Germans were exact, but they were also some kind of the people who were trying to, look for a way around or maybe make some extra money. And it also could happen. But the first theory, it's showing that there are kind of 2 kilometers of the tunnels missing. And this map, which I saw, this map is showing you the tunnels with a different kind of the lines. So if the line was like here, it means the tunnel is built and it's finished. If the
Yes.
line was like stripped, like with the brakes, it
Yeah.
means this tunnel was dug. It was already covered in concrete on the sides, but there was no bottom built, which doesn't mean there is a soil on the bottom, which means there was no even ground. You were still
Yeah.
like in the egg shape, and you were just walking in the bottom of the egg instead of this railway that would have been placed on it afterwards. And
Hmm.
there are some tunnels marked with this line in this inventarization map, and you can see those tunnels, but there are some tunnels marked with the same line that you cannot see on the map.
Interesting.
So they had some tunnels that were dug. They had some tunnels that were covered with concrete, I mean reinforced with the concrete, that are still now and marked with the same kind of a line. And you have some tunnels that are not, but there are some locked openings, locked built-in openings with the bricks, and literally there are hundreds of them underground there. And literally every one of them was open because you see that either some wild Polish people were trying to dig it through and to see if there is something behind, and the Russians spent 2 years exploring those undergrounds. So they had enough time to actually open every one of them, and they did it. They were even marking with the pencil which were open, which were not, because of the to check to don't do the double job. But the difference between Polish explorers and those Soviet explorers was that Soviet explorers were actually building the wall back so that the sand is not soil is not get in. Polish didn't care about it, and that's why we have so much mud underground. The water is transferring it all over, getting the pipe stuck, so the water is flowing not underground in a pipe but above the ground, bringing even more sand. So that's not the best part. And all of those places were checked. And it's difficult to believe that the Russians or Germans were that stupid to actually hide the tunnel just behind the wall. One layer of the bricks. Behind that, there was some wooden parts, and then there is a tunnel. No, nobody would hide because that's not the way to hide it.
No.
You would have to leave at least couple of meters between those bricks of the normal virgin looking ground so that people will get distracted and say, okay, there was supposed to be a tunnel, there is not, so I will just fill it back. But maybe 2 meters further, 3 meters further, there was something. So that there were some guys trying to find it because they believe. So if you build a tunnel, what you start from is actually the drainage the drainage, so that you want to
Yes.
have the water getting out of the place where you built. So whatever you started with, you had to start it from the bottom. So in front of those entrances, they started to find the first opened manhole. They got in and they were trying to get the pipe with the stream up with the camera to see if this pipe is going actually longer than it's going the tunnel. And in not even a single case, they actually confirmed it happening, even though they were trying in some parts which are marked on with this tunnel, with this map of the tunnels with this stripped line. And can you go back to the map?
Maybe.
Yes. And you see at the bottom of it, there is one place so the trains could actually turn around. If you go a little bit higher, there is a second place in the middle on the right side. It's called Nietoperska, Nipterschleife. It's the second place where the train could actually turn around. But what's missing is a place on the north where the place could turn around. There is not such a place, but there are some maps of the undergrounds which are showing a little bit higher, please, which are showing some undergrounds around 733. That there was a big other Schleife place where the trains could turn back and so on. And that's the place where they were actually checking it through the drainage. If there is something behind the drainage, they were just getting to the inspection camera and to the drainage and going to the direction of the wall to see if the drainage goes further than the tunnel. And in none of the case they confirmed it being there, because if it would be the case, there would be already holes above the ground or in the walls or whatsoever. And
Did
still
anybody
no
try the GPR?
GPR. Is it this geo radar that's
Yeah.
sending some signal underground? It's also not allowed to do it officially without the permission from the archaeology office or
It's
whatsoever.
not allowed to. Okay.
Yes, I mean it's a non-invasive method. You
Yeah.
can use it without destroying even fucking tree on the surface. but you need a permission to do it.
Uh-huh.
Yes, this is how it works in Poland. Yeah. And what I really think is there is still something hidden in those undergrounds. I mean, there were so many bunkers that were transferred to because they didn't finish the whole conception. And if you build the conception of fortified front, you need all of the parts to work together because they are intersecting each other. If
Yes.
there's one part missing, then this whole system is not going to work because every force of the enemy can get through this narrow point where
Yeah.
nobody is shooting at, and that's not working. And they had many of such bunkers, and some of the bunkers, especially on the south, that are not connected to the underground, so they are not on this map. There, I heard some new informations about people coming, especially after 1989, when it was easier to come to Poland, and they were digging some parts above the doors because they knew there is something hidden in the wall. The wall was 1 meter thick, so it was actually easy to hide something in it. I heard those stories, but I don't believe that the Germans were that stupid to actually to make only one layer of the bricks or so. I think if they were building places to hide something underground, they were doing it way smarter. And I think they're between the place where the tunnel actually starts again and the place where it's actually covered with the bricks, there may not be like 20 or 50 or centimeters or 1 meter. You have to
Yeah.
transfer it to inches by yourself, but there will be more meters. Like you have to check like first 5 meters or so on. So that maybe
Yeah.
this is the part where it's going to start, but it's difficult to do it underground because in the summertime you have trips there from with the people going from the museum in the day. In the night you have illegal explorers, and the whole winter you cannot do anything there officially because they are bad sleeping.
Yes.
And so many wild explorers going there and drinking and having fun, which basically that's what I did for first 2 years when I actually discovered this place. And I want to bite into this place, especially around the A64. Can you go a little bit lower? Yes, A64 on the left side next to 772. There is supposed to be a second train station parallel to this one, which you see on the map. And there are 5 entrances in this station because I've been there not so far ago. And this is the part from A64 Haupteinfahrt to this Friedrich station. That's the only part of this underground system which was not built by digging. It was built that they just had to make a small hole because the land configuration allowed it. They made a small hole, they made a concrete tunnel, egg form inside it, and then they covered it with the sound that they actually extracted from the underneath. So that's the only part when they were not digging it like as a tunnel, they were actually having an open building place. And that's the place where I would also look for some interesting parts. And I think this parallel train station, which was marked along the A64 with this stripped line, that's the place where I would place my interest on.
Yeah.
Uh, and yes, I mean there's still so much to explore, but first of all, that requires a lot of time, and then you need also some smart way to do it under the radar, if I would say like that.
Apparently, yes. I mean, the
Which is the
GDR
hardest
thing.
part.
What there was a couple of years ago, well, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there was somebody who dug in. Was that Ludendorff girl? Was it nice enough?
Yes, I know even know a guy who was doing it.
Was it nice enough?
I know him, and this guy, you probably saw a lot of his paintings. It's Herr Jurga. He was doing it with his ex-wife. He got some. I don't know exactly how was it. There's still a movie on it from YouTube on the YouTube, but it was made before the cell phone's camera, so it's
Yeah,
made like
it's definitely
not
of a VHS tape.
or so on. And they had a permission, and they had a company from Germany
Yep.
that decided to either support it or to fund it. I don't know on which terms. I'm not going to speak about it because I don't know. But
Yeah.
everything was legal. He was having a Polish company with his wife. They were actually having some guided trips in the undergrounds. They were renting probably the southern part or so on, and they knew that those barracks underground in Ludendorff, they were normal. They were complete after the war. Germans didn't explode them, and that they had a lot of information from the local people that after the war they could get in and remove some beds, clothes, military clothes, and so on. But now this whole group of bunkers is being completely exploded. I mean, they literally made a lot to destroy it, and especially the underground part, because the underground parts were not built in a concrete monolith like it is normally in OSTWALL. They were built from prefabricated segments. So there was a
Yeah.
line connecting it in the middle and in the bottom. And it was when there was a shock wave, it was difficult to open it. And then the sand was pouring in, filling it in with the water and so on. So it's really a mess to get through it. I can get like 15 meters away from those barracks. Underground, it requires crawling in the water. It's like not like super dangerous, but it's super cold and not comfortable. But besides that, you see such a collapse that you actually have a lot of need to. You would need a lot of heavy equipment to get through it, and that's what they got. They actually got some heavy equipment, and they started to dig a well, and they started to place such a concrete circles, to
Yes,
stabilize
I
the
saw.
well.
Yeah.
And they got to the tunnel. They got to the tunnel that they wanted to because this whole place was placed carefully so that they will hit the tunnel, not like 2 meters next to it. And they hit the tunnel. They started to dig it through this concrete level, this concrete shield to get it through to get into the tunnel. And this is the moment when somebody from upstairs actually got afraid that they will find something. And it also can have two sides. It can have the conspiracy side that he was called by a man in a black glasses and a black suit, and they told him to stop it because he was not supposed to allow them doing that. Maybe that's a way. Or he just got afraid that they will find something and it will bring a lot of troubles on him. And he's like 2 years before him going to the retirement, or he's now in the year of election and people won't elect him anymore and he wanted to close it. I don't know. Anyway, in the moment when they actually hit the wall and they started to get it through to finally to reveal the secret, what's happening with those barracks underground, because they were kind of big, filled with the equipment. This Ludendorff group is one of the very small amount of the bunkers that actually fought and actually fought a lot. They've been fighting a lot from those bunkers, so maybe they were defending something because it was supposed to be normal Volkssturm. Why didn't they run away like the other guys from the main part?
Yeah.
Maybe there was a reason, maybe don't. I don't know. But there came what's the name of it? A text from above. Yeah, you have to stop it. The guys got pissed off because they were literally that much from unrevealing the truth,
So
and they had
that's
to
why
fill
they
it back
stopped.
in.
See,
And
I
they
always
had to,
wondered why they stopped, and then they filled everything up again.
yeah, they had no other reason. They actually probably put even a little bit of concrete into the tunnel that they dug so that nobody else will be able to do that, because this place it's so much over the radar. There's no way to dig it without any permission because it's close to the village. People
Yeah.
know there are bunkers, and especially in Poland, in the village areas, if you are starting to dig something, then there's somebody telling that, oh, German place, so they have to find some treasures and so on, and they will do everything so that you won't find it, so because they don't want it. They will call the police, call to the guy who is in charge of this village or the city. So it's a not friendly area, I would say, to do something. And it's also difficult. You need a years sometimes to wait for the response from the office actually trying to let you do something, even go with this GDR or however you call it, this geo radar that's not damaging anything. You need a permission for that in Poland, and
Well, I know some people with some stuff. I know some military people who built some things that, but we'll talk about that later.
yeah,
Uh,
I will just smile in the response.
but at least the East Wall is a place whenever we can all travel, we can all take you all to.
Yeah,
Uh, but that's you're right, and it's an interesting place because it's such it's the German version of the Maginot Line, basically.
yeah,
Um,
but a little bit more advanced, I would say.
it's interesting because that was always my start with one of the visit forts to see which one I wanted to fight out of, and I've seen a lot of the Maginot Line forts, and they're impressive too. But the East Wall looks so damn safe, so that's impressive too. So I don't know. So
Yeah, the Israel got was not finished. That's the problem of it.
that's the problem.
Maginot Line, they had time and the money to finish it. It cost them a lot, but yeah. Some people say that the fact that Hitler built Maginot, Ostwall, which, by the way, it's a wrong name. You know my take on it. I don't. I'm using it only for the sake of this discussion. But Ostwall was 1,000 kilometers further to the east. This place is called Festungsfront
That's the
Oderwarte.
Puma line, right?
What?
The Puma line.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, I
But
think
Ostwald is not like 100% correct. But let's leave it. From what I wanted to say, some people say that Hitler lost in 1931 and for the under the Moscow, just because 2 or 3 Panzer divisions were not there. He just needed 2, maybe 3 divisions more, and then he would reach to the Moscow, and it would maybe change the course of our history if he would actually got the Moscow. I'm not discussing, but the thing is that he spent 5 years and huge amount of money building those Ostwall fortifications. And it is estimated that the money he actually concreted into the ground in this area was sufficient for 3 divisions of the best tanks that he could have. And so that's an also interesting part. But when it comes to the Ostwall, I literally will have to hold me down in those places because I can speak and speak and speak, and I can actually stand in front of the normal concrete wall and tell you 10-minute stories about it because there's some marks of people doing that, or look, the concrete is different, somebody was digging there. It's like, yes, it's a very interesting place, and I'm really looking forward to take you to this place.
Okay, so I got to ask you then, because I've been asked. The drawing in the Ostwald tunnels of Jimi Hendrix was said to have been done by Russian soldiers.
No.
After
which year was Jimi Hendrix living? I think it was like 1960 something.
Yeah.
19. So no. This in this time it was already in the Polish hands, because Russians were there for like 2 or 3 years, I think, after the war, and then they handed it over to the Polish military.
So the Polish did it.
Polish military did it, and it's also funny because Polish military, they started to somehow use these undergrounds for their own purposes, and they started to paint from the south. They wanted to have it white, and they spent, I think, 3 years painting, and they didn't manage to finish to paint the south, which is funny because Germans, before the war, having far lesser technology, they managed to build those 32 kilometers of tunnels in 2 years, and Polish people didn't manage to paint them in 3 years. And to mention also, they were that what's the name of it, lazy, that if there was like the wardrobe, like the big document, what's the name of it, furniture standing in front of the wall, that there were some documents in. They were not painting behind it. They were just painting above it and on the sides, there where they could reach. And now those furniture is removed, and you can see some weirdly painted walls on the side with this white paint. So, yeah.
Well, having grown up in the West, there's a whole lot of jokes about Polish workers that we're not going to get into.
Oh, yes, I know.
But I will say that a lot of construction or work right now in Germany and Denmark are being done by Polish workers. Come over for several months.
And in construction places in Poland, there are Ukrainian people working.
Oh hell! But you live in Germany now. You're still
now in Berlin. Yeah, I'm living in Berlin for 10 years now. That's why I'm also a member of this Berliner Underground Society. Not the most active one, but I'm still the member. And that's a place that's not close enough for my case, but close enough for many interesting places from the Second World War. And one of them is actually the second place we can talk about now, which is Falkenhagen. That's a very interesting place. You had no idea about its existence, and I still remember you telling me that's not every day that somebody gives me a German complex from Second World War that I had no idea about existence. Yeah,
I know.
Yes, that's also a very interesting place. I know I could send you some stuff so that you can post it now.
Well, I guess I have to start dieting if I'm going to get in there. I am just.
I'm sending you a link to my article. It's in Polish, but you can still see the pictures of it, which is the interesting part. So this is the, and also this, I think the history of this complex is already known, and even despite me being the guy who really would like to have something hidden there or have something to pursue in this area, I think that's not going to happen in this place, because it has never been that important for anybody. In German times, they actually, there was nothing there before. There was not a fortification or whatsoever. They just needed a place which is close to the Berlin, and which is actually remote, in a remote area, probably covered with, surrounded by forests, so that nobody can see what's happening. And actually, they started building it 1 month before they invaded Poland, and they wanted to produce some combat gases and also propulsion gases, combat agents, and
Yeah.
propulsion agents. I mean, the one you have in a rocket as a gas,
Yeah.
but stuff like that. And because of that, they built this bunker. Can you put the link I sent you on this StreamYard? The link, maybe I will. No, where else?
You emailed it, right?
No. I send it on a private chat on this site where we are connected.
So you're making me actually work for it. So how's Sasha doing?
How is what doing?
Sasha, Kyle.
Sasha Kai. Yeah, he started a family now, not so far ago. He became a father, I think, like 2 years ago.
I know I had lunch with
And
him 3 months ago.
yeah, he's still sending me some links from the undergrounds. We are still in a good touch and in a good contact, but we it's been a while since we've been underground together. Last time it was like 2 years ago in this OSTWALL, actually.
I don't have a link from you yet.
So actually, I will email it to you, because
On anything. If you email it, I can just open it up. That's one thing that drives me crazy. I can't find the way into the underground of the Maybach complex. I can't find that hole. It's driving me crazy. I've been trying 3 times now.
Okay, I will try to take care of it. I have like 2 independent groups of the people who may help me or not to get in that. So I will. I emailed you the link.
Right. No, I talked to Sasha about that because I keep not the museum part, because they were very not nice when I was there. Very, very not nice. So I figured I'll go to the other Maybach and I'll find my way in there, because I know there's a way into the underground. And I sort of think I know what bunker it is. I've been through all of them and I can't find it. And it's just driving me crazy now. And Sasha told me, oh, you need rope ladders. It's going to be a long crawl. And I can't even find the hole. So now it's becoming a personal thing. So,
yeah, I know. I know what you mean. So this complex was very interesting, Falkenhagen complex, because of the bunker that's been built there, because this bunker is covered with a 3.5 meter thick layer of the concrete in the times of 1939, which is the time when there was literally no bomb anywhere on the planet that could hit through such a layer. And not only this layer is the part that's actually protecting it from the outside, but also some kind of a brass layer which they put around it, so that there is a Faraday cage, inside the bunker. I mean, you have no communication of anything. There's also no water getting in to the bunker. They made it waterproof and signal proof and so on, and they made it. And this bunker was built only in the purpose of underground production of those gases, and the wall thickness is 3.5 meters, not because to protect from the bombings, because in the times when they were bombing it, there was no bombs that could hit it, and there was nobody who could fly the planes so far to the east to actually bomb this place. They built it to keep the stuff which is inside, to keep it in. So this combat gas which was there, it was really difficult to handle, I mean, it was liquid only till 12 grades Celsius grades, I think. And up from 12 Celsius grade, it was starting to vaporize. And when it was vaporizing, it was self like the started to initiated the burning process on any surface. So if it goes on your skin starts to burn with a flame, literally. And you it was not able to wear a gas mask when this gas was inside in the air, because it was getting through the cold filters which were used in the masks in this back time. And there was no way to protect your own forces if you wanted to use this gas. And this gas was extremely, I don't know what's the proper word, reactional. It was reacting with any surfaces it was touching. It could even make asbestos burning, even though that's the part which is not burning. And there are some metals which are not corrosive, like the platinum, iridium. Those are the metals that don't get oxidated. And actually, it could corrode if you put this kind of chemical on it. And they found it as a pesticide in Breslau in 1929, I think, and they were trying to turn this production into some kind of bombs that they will be using, but it was difficult to put in the bombs because this was unstable. It could also explode or vaporize inside the bombs. They tried to use it to the bunkers. That's a sarin complex. That's a second one that's built only in 10% maybe, but
This
it's
one.
still interesting. So coming back to this gas, they were trying to use it in the bunkers, and they were testing it in a Maginot line. So to neutralize a bunker, you could put a gas inside through the ventilation, and if this gas gets inside the bunker, it starts the fire in a temperature of 2,500 Celsius. So it burns everything. There is literally not even a pile of ash remaining after the crew of this bunker if they put it in, and it was working pretty well with the bunkers. They were trying to use it as the fuel for torpedoes, because torpedoes that are fueled with this trifluoride of chlorium, I think I translated it well, were not leaving this white mark behind them, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was their idea, but they didn't manage to finish it, and it was actually never pursued. And there's only one thing that's making me interested about it, because that's like indicating that there is a part of the history we know nothing about. If you would go to the link that I sent to you, please.
I'm still waiting for it,
I sent it to you in email. It's like in a sent.
but it's not coming. Not in the
I
not in the text. Unless you did you.
I just sent you a link from Kawiak Piotr. I will.
Not on WhatsApp and not
Okay,
on
WhatsApp. That's
Facebook either.
going to be the first one.
Oh, wait a minute. You can just write it here in the comment section. Can you?
I sent it to you on WhatsApp, and I wrote it in a comment
There it is.
section.
GeoMonster.org. All right.
Yeah, that's the website. If you want to waste your time at work, that's the website you go to in Poland. There's everything from from funny cat pictures to the articles about Second World War. That's maybe interesting for most part of the society. And I wrote a couple of articles. This article is in Polish, but if you have the link that you can post also, you can easily translate it. So there are two complexes here. One of them is made for, it's called Muna, and it was made to produce this gas. This gas was either a camping gas, or it was the gas to propel those torpedoes and to destroy the bunkers and so on and so on. But there is a second complex, and this complex, and the first complex was built like a normal stuff. They started in a peacetime without the war law, war order, and so on, and they started normal competition for the companies who wanted to build it, and the company who was suited the most won the contract. They started to do it. They had workers that they were paying. It was not built by slaves. It was, of course, a secret area because military was building it, but it was not like something super sketchy or so on. But the second part, they started to build it in 1932 or 3, I think. Can you put them up on the screen, please? And
This
go
one.
lower, lower, lower. There will be some plan. That's the area. Oh, stop. Oh, yes, leave it here, please. And those black stuff is black points are blocks are the buildings that the Germans built. Of course, after the war, Russians built like 25 new buildings around it, but they are typical Soviet blocks. And if you would see which state they are now in, after 40 years, they look like they are about to collapse. And if you go to the German buildings, that looks like a normal place where you, I don't know, can hide your horses or whatsoever. Okay, leave it on the map, please. Then they are in a way better condition than the Russians, but that's not the stuff
Yeah,
I
I,
wanted
I
to.
could tell by looking through the other pictures that a lot of
So
Russian
on
bits up.
this western side, you see there is a complex that's almost 85%, 90% finished. But
Yeah,
on the right side, in 1931, they started to build a whole new complex, which was just close to this one, but they were not connected anyhow when it comes to production and so on. They were just close to each other. They were not producing some components for the same stuff. And this second complex was not built by a normal company that was working for Wehrmacht in this time. This second complex was built by a very nice duo. One part of this duo is SS, which you already know that they were not the nicest employee that you could have. And the second part, and the second was IG Farben, which is also not a nice company to work for during the war. So those two companies, organizations, they actually joined each other and they started to build there a new complex from the ground. There was nothing there. There was just a connection to the train railway system that they made recently. And they started to build a new complex in 1942. And the only purpose of this complex, you showed some pictures of it, was to produce sarin. Sarin is this gas that's paralyzing
yeah.
you, and it was also discovered shortly before the war as a pesticide. And Germany already at this point of the war, 3 years inside the war, within the war, they already had like 20,000 tons of this gas, whereas only a couple of milligrams can already kill you in a pain.
Yeah.
So they had more than it's sufficient to kill the whole population of the Europe. They just
No,
didn't
smart.
use it because there was an unwritten pact between the powers that they are not going to throw any bombs with the. And Hitler knew that if he would start using the gas, then because of lack of his air protection, his cities would be bombarded with the gas bombs. Britain's actually produced like 1.5 millions of the air bombs filled with the gas just in case Hitler would use it. So they were 3 years inside the war. They started to lose. They started to be short in a concrete, steel, work power, everything. And they have 3 years of a war with totally zero, absolutely zero experience in using combat gases. They did it nowhere. Only somewhere on the Eastern Front, there are some rumors that they use it maybe once in one particular case. But they already had enough of it to kill the whole Europe and maybe Asia if they would have an efficient way to do it. Yeah, or at least to kill half of the population. They had it. They had no experiences and no perspectives of using it. And then, yet in 1942, they decide, okay, we have two areas producing this gas. We have 20,000 tons of it, which is more than we need to kill everybody.
Uh-huh.
And we don't see a possibility to use it anymore. Let's build another complex that's going to build to produce it.
It doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
that's the part where I became suspicious, and I was like, why the Germans wanted to build a new complex? And they had already two complexes. One was next to Hanover or Hamburg, I don't remember, and second one was next to Brzeg in Poland, which was called Dinefurt, I think. So they were three complexes like that were producing it, and this whole part on the right side, which you see on the go lower, please. Lower, lower, lower. There is some area picture. Yeah, that's the bunker to produce this first gas. Yes, that's the model of it. It's being in a church. This place is the bunker to store it. All of the rooms, 64 of them, were made for 1 ton of this gas. This is the level above it, the ventilation. Those metal red parts are already gone. There is only one weight remaining. All of them, they were removed to the scrap. That's also another take on it now. You don't see the hatches anymore. and that's the tower. You can see 3.5 meters of concrete on the top of this tower. This tower was used to the ventilation. That's the third one, I think. So that's the ventilation for the bunker that they were stocking the gas in,
Yeah.
which is also a funny thing because they built this tower only for the purpose of removing the gases from those chambers when they were storing this gas. But in 1931, there was something like quality control in Germany, which is surprising and not surprising because they had a lot to do in those time, and yet they found the time to make some quality control in a bunker of the place, which we may need or not need in the future. And the quality control revealed that this tower it's not sufficient to remove all of the gases that may or may not come from this bunker. So we need another tower. And in 1930 or 31, they started to build another tower, which is called Havaria-Ablufturm, which is like emergency tower to exhale the gases. And they started to build another tower, which is not going to go to the bunker model, which is a little bit higher. Oh, you see this tower is on the right side. There is like a small, strange tunnel connected to the whole bunker body, which is made only for a sake if something will happen, so that we have enough of capacity in those air tunnels. I don't know. But like I said, this idea of this sarin complex that started to build in 1931 or 32 or even later, the only idea of it that they start the construction so far into the war and with no experiences of the combat gases to produce even more of it, even though they have even more than they need so far, it's kind of sketchy for me, and it's interesting. And these buildings that are still there, it's interesting example for what a Soviet primitive people can do with the sophisticated laboratory undergrounds that were actually built there, because you can see that there were some special tiles on the walls against the acid. So in those undergrounds, and they built only the lowest level. They didn't build the building upon it. There's only basement there. So what the Russians did with this basement, they removed all of the walls and they started a pig place. I don't know, place where you put animals, pigs, so that you can give them the rest of the food and they can eat, grow, and you can eat them. I don't know, pig house, whatever it is, pig
A
barn.
farm?
Call it. They did it literally in a old German place that was made for actually
Highly,
creating the combat gases.
highly specialized. That's ridiculous.
Yes, and right next to it there is a place called it's like the coal station, coal power plant, because the small power plant which was made underneath the Werkstattgebäude, that underneath the building inside this old complex, it was not sufficient anymore, so they had to build something stronger, and they started to build it in 1941, 1942, and you can see the higher the level is, the less the quality is, because you could see how much they were approaching. Oh, this is interesting. Please go higher to this picture. This chimney is a chimney of the construction building. I mean, this building is only supposed to be a hide-up. Now, of the normal construction, a train can get in, and you can, I don't know, fix the brakes or whatsoever. This is what this building was supposed to be like. But what was this building hiding is 2 levels of underground, and underground in this building you actually have a coal power plant with coal bunkers and so on. It's partly flooded only to the knee level, I think. And this chimney, there are actually 6 or 8 chimneys inside this chimney, were actually made only to inhale and exhale the gases to the undergrounds, which were producing the electricity for the whole bunker and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But this power plant in a complex of sarin, which is like right next to this Ziverk complex, you can see at the highest level there is almost no concrete. There is only gravel. There are only small stones in the walls, and the walls are all actually such a shitty made. And you can see the wooden parts of it that were made to form the concrete. I don't know what's the name of it. It's still there since 1945. So you can see that the last 2 floors, they were actually pouring a concrete to those 2 floors in a moment when they actually could see the Russian army approaching, from the east. And it's also really crazy why they were doing it. They knew that this complex is 10% finished. They knew that the Russians are going to be there in at least a year. They knew they are not going to need this gas because it's not allowed to use it, and the revenge would be actually deadly. And why they were doing it? Oh, that's the nice, interesting picture, because you can see this underground construction building, Werkstattbau, on the left side from your cursor, and underneath you see 2 floors of underground constructions that were sustaining this whole complex. This is the bunker. On the left side, you can see the building that you actually saw the chimney from.
So what do you think? Do you think they were building making something else?
It's hard to think anything, because to find the purpose in it, it's you can put the aerial pictures of this from the drone. It's interesting. I just cannot find the purpose in a building. This first complex is fine. They finished in 80%. This gas turned out not to be the best one because of the containing. Because of it, it's difficult to put it in a container because it reacts with everything. So this one is clear, even though the owner of the place, the guy who has the keys to it, is believing that there is a 5th floor of the bunker, which has only 4 floors, and that there are some stuff hidden from East Germany, that he saws, that he knows somebody who saw some trucks getting in there, and there is another bunker. That's his story. I would like to believe them, but I have no reasons to believe them, actually. But the second complex, it's not fitting to the story. It's like
Is this a town or is this a complex?
What?
Is this a town?
That's a town, and this complex is here. It's actually surrounded by forest. It's not a town; it's a village. The one you showed, and maybe 200 people living there. But this whole complex is surrounded by a thick forest, and it's not that easy to get in there. And if you get to the highest point, which is this power station, you can see forest almost to the horizon on all of the sides around. It's a good place for a day.
This stands out on an aerial photograph really easy.
Yes.
I mean, thank God that nobody bombed it.
And fly over this place. Till 1939, this was not allowed because they were building it. 1935, not because it was secret military facility. And then Russians came, and they also said it's difficult. It's our secret base now, so it's let's not allow people to actually fly over it. So the first pictures you get from 1992, when the Russians actually moved out from this place. And a fun fact: the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, I think. The Germany reunited in 1989 or 1990, I think. Mm-hmm. And the Russians moved out of this place in 1992. It took them 3 years to remove everything which they had, which is only 25 buildings and 1 4-story bunkers. There's not much to remove. Why it took so long? I don't know. It's just a question I place. Maybe they were lazy, or maybe there was some, I don't know, political reason, not a secret reason. But I'm just raising here the questions because it's a weird thing.
But it's the same thing about the Truppeübungsplatz in Jonastal. They didn't move out of that right away either. But so you said they had live animals here.
Russians, yes. I mean, they built a city around the bunker. They rebuilt the city, the buildings that were supposed to be for some kind of generators or some kind of laboratories. They rebuilt the cities, the buildings, totally to make them accommodation able, mm-hmm. so that people can sleep in there and so on. And they rebuilt everything. They built new cities, and they actually, if you were a Russian guy coming there from, I don't know, from a cartoon somewhere in the deep east, you were coming there with your family and you were living in this camp. You had your own kindergarten, you had your own cinema, and they were trying to make life. So you also need a food source, and this is how they came up with the idea. Oh, we have a place with a roof there. It was supposed to produce combat gases, but now fuck it. Let's place pigs there and let's produce meat in this area.
That is so stupid. Unless they're using the animals for testing the gas, but that doesn't seem like a good idea.
No, actually, Germans managed to produce only maybe 3-4 tons of this gas in the bunker. And we know about people from Mauthausen, 700 of them that were sent in there to actually be the guinea pigs for the Russia, for the Soviet, for the Germans, sorry, to find out how damaging this gas is. And they had never been heard from before, those people. And the Russians, they spent also a lot of time exploring this place. They removed a lot of stuff that's been there too big for them, for the Germans to remove in a hurry. But they were not even defending this place. They actually hit one division of Hitlerjugend, I think, that's been there, and they ran away before the Russians came. They had many more troubles than defending this area. But it's interesting from the perspective of the way that Germans worked, and I really want you to see this whole
Yeah.
bunker, which was built underground only to protect from what's inside it to get out. And then the ways of the Russians rebuilding it, making in a big rooms, they started to make a roof in the middle so that they have two levels. They started to build the walls and lock some ventilations because they changed the ventilation to the climate, to the air conditioning actually, and so on. And there are so many remaining stuff like the newspapers, maybe the buttons, the maps, or the books with handwriting, which is difficult to read in a Russian alphabet. That's an interesting place, but that's not the place where I would put many question marks on. Only question mark is the second complex, which is built only in 5 or 10%, and that's not like if there is something hidden there. The question I would raise is what the heck was the reason of building and spending so much resources in this part of the war on something that you have no perspectives for using?
Could any of it have been retooled to make rocket fuel?
Uh, yes, because this first part, I think, the
Because
first part.
that's what they were really needing was fuel,
Because
rocket
that's what I actually use this gas now for. It's like if you want to weld something, if you buy the welding gases, this gas is actually added as a small part of it to make the burning process better.
fuel.
And the second use of this gas nowadays is actually in a rocket fuel. I'm
Okay, well,
talking about this gas which is reacting with everything. It's not the main component of it, it's just a part of it, but it's actually being used in a rocket fuel.
that does make some sense then, at least.
Yeah. But then why not finishing the first complex, which is 85% ready and which already has an underground bunker made for that? Why start building another one without underground bunker? And why starting to build it 2 years before the war and got over and so on? That's not fitting. Like those tunnels in the OSTWALL that head above the defense perimeter,
Yeah.
behind the defense perimeter. That's like only bringing the question. Maybe there's some stupid or easy answer, like they just want it, or it was an idea of somebody. It was private, somebody that pushed it to the order or so on. I don't know, but that's the only question I would have it with that. But I want you to see this place
All right.
because, like I said, this bunker it's really interesting. The undergrounds of this construction building are also interesting, and I wish there were still so many connections underground like it used to be. Because in German times, all of the bunkers, all of the buildings were interconnected underground. Now the Russians actually rebuilt it a little bit, and it's not so much of the connections anymore, but
Yeah.
this place is really interesting, like I said, from the historical perspective, not from the perspective of seeking the truth or maybe revealing something. This one, it's not something like that. And to my way of thinking, of course, because I may be wrong, and I really want to be wrong. I want there to be something hidden there, but it's so not
Well,
that.
I did notice that as we were sitting here chatting, one of my friends wrote me that he may have a code breaker. So maybe we will go look for that thing that I'm not going to tell you right here what is or
Mm.
where it came from, but it came from some very reputable people that are related to somebody very high up.
Mm.
And I don't like to gossip. So and I
Yeah, I know.
I don't
In
like
your
to gossip, and I don't like to put out names until I know. So
No, I
we'll
totally
find something.
understand it. So
At
to
least
sum
we can
up,
go.
this year, Ostwald, Falkenhagen, And I would like you to meet one guy from the city next to the Cottbus. I mentioned it to you a couple of days ago. This guy is living in a city. In this city, there was also like a Wehrmacht village, Wehrmacht campus, Wehrmacht city built on a suburb of this small city, and that there were some old coal mines underneath it, and this guy has a very interesting stories. It's right next to the Polish border, Polish-German border. It's like 100 meter, 50 meters away from it. And there are some tunnels that are heading to the border. You can see it on the lidar. And that's also something really, really interesting for you. So those three places, they are actually not farther than 150 kilometers apart of each other. So
Yeah,
this
don't
this
worry,
is
I'm
the triangle I would like to have a tour with you.
well. Then don't worry, I'm driving. And then I would say Remag and Quats in Austria.
Yeah,
And
that's further south. Yeah.
don't worry, I'm driving. Um,
And you pay for the gas because it got so fucking expensive now in Germany. It's crazy.
I know. When people ask why I'm taking donations, it's for gas and coffee.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I do actually. If I
yeah,
ask for a donation in my videos, there is like this poll from the tank station showing you the prices of the gas, and
I
I say,
know.
"Come on, buy me a liter of the gas because it's really difficult." And wherever I go, I have to go for free 500 kilometers on the way in and then on the way back, and it's
I
yeah
mean,
only maintaining the car.
it
Yeah.
is by far one of the single one large is more expensive than the airfare. That's why when I know. But we'll yeah, I have a we'll chat more offline way before I get there, and we'll make a plan. I figure I'll be spending a couple of months, uh, May and June probably. I was supposed to go to Russia and Ukraine, but I don't know if that's a good idea these
Not
days.
the best idea. I'm also planning to spend a week underground in a cave. And one of the possibilities I have is in one of the Ukrainian caves because they are relatively complex. You have on like 2 or 3 square kilometers, you have 200 kilometers tunnels, like
Mm.
150 kilometers tunnels. It's like a complete maze. It's made in a gypsum. There are a lot of flowstones and a lot of crystals and so on. And those caves are warm. They are not that deep. So that would be the perfect place for me to arrange a week underground without seeing the sky, because this is how I want to call it. I want to call it week without the sky. And
And I
then
want to go to
I want to experience this feeling of seeing the blue and the green for the first time after a week. I've been underground. I just want it's for me. I spent so far the longest time underground was like 105 hours. Now I want to make it to 1 week. 1 week is 140 or 178 hours. So I
hey,
want to almost
as
double
long as
it.
you bring a shovel and enough toilet paper, you'll be fine.
That's true, but after some time you just want to get out, and I want to see how it's going to work with me. But I can go to the Ukraine. It's probably not going to be that expensive because I need some people to support me carrying in the food and so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
resources. But the last thing I want is get out after 1 week and see the rockets, tanks, trenches and army and shooting in front of me. And I was like, oh wow. And then I literally see the scene of the movie, like when I'm just crawling back saying, fuck this shit, I'm out, and getting back to the cave like a
Well,
cockroach
it's gonna
because
go
it's
back.
all
Yeah.
safe on the surface. And the only idea of a war making a problem for my underground exploration, that the possibility of war, it's like crazy. 2 years ago, I wouldn't even believe that I would consider such a case by going underground. But now,
And I want to go to Sevastopol, so
oh yes, and Odessa, there are so nice, some nice catacombs there too. Yeah,
I want to see the fortresses. I want to see the forts.
yes.
But well, we'll see what happens. I also have a date in Argentina, and I have like I said, there's 1,000 underground relocations. Not a date, but a date to go visit. Um, like I would get a date with the interests I have. Uh, what do you want to do, honey? I want to go see a cave. Uh huh. Fuck off. All right, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I was going to say, there's 1,000 underground relocations during the war that we know of, on factories that moved into underground tunnels and factories, and Kamla oversaw 25 of them. I want to see all of those, and then there's all the other 1,000. I said I want to visit all of them, so we'll see how it goes. Well, anyway, since we've been here for almost 4 hours,
that's kind of scary when I look at the clock in the corner.
but we'll do this again. Don't worry, and I'll be out there in a couple of months. We'll talk, and I'll send you a couple of those drawings. See what you think, because I really don't know what to make of it. It seems like the drawings Klein he made of how they constructed underground hiding places. That's what it looks like. And with the security, the points of security or detonations and booby traps to some degree as well seems to be what's mentioned there. But I'll show you, and you'll see what you think. We can't read it, but a drawing is a drawing, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like, don't press this or step on that. All right, buddy.
We already saw some pictures from our friend Thomas, and I'm really interested if it's going to be similar to that.
I'll put up your YouTube on the link underneath here. Now I have to go deal with traffic and drop off a hard drive in the other end of town, just because. But it was good finally catching up with you.
Yes. We've been postponing it for a while, but finally we made it. And I'm really glad about it. I'm actually almost losing my voice. I'm not sure if you can hear it, which means I've been talking a lot.
That means it's a good time to go. All right, buddy. You take care, and all of you guys out there take care. And hey, I'll see you in a couple of months, but we'll chat after this. Or not after this, but tomorrow, or when we have voices back.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.